Chapter 680 Wuxia Free Immortal Master I won. An Exian lightly laughed, causing other disciples to cheer, which made the blood prison great saint even more uncomfortable. To appear magnanimous before the master, he had to force a smile. After Guan offered a few simple remarks, he let an Exian lead the disciples away. The blood prison great saint landed beside Guan, hanging his head, looking utterly forlorn. After the aura of an Exian and the others faded into the distance, he gritted his teeth and said, "Master, next time I will definitely win it back." Thinking about it now, it's truly incredible. Before the creation of the Taoist field of the beginningless, Enzin's talent was so mediocre, hardly worth mentioning compared to other disciples. Yet, after arriving at Wuxia, Enzin's Tao practice advanced rapidly. Recalling the earlier battle, he even felt a chill. Enzin's divine skills were too terrifying. He was besieged by countless Enzins. If not for his Boda's strong self-healing power, he would have long been defeated. The self-healing divine skill he created seemed tailored to showcase Enzin's prowess. With anyone else, it's doubtful they'd witness so many Enzins. The blood prison great saint's heart had never been so defeated. He dared not face Guan's gaze. Although an Exian was Guan's most cherished disciple, he was the only mount. In his view, his position was more special, and he could not afford to lose. Guan seldom saw the blood prison great saint so dejected, asking, "Are you very unwilling?" The blood prison great saint nodded heavily, his usual arrogance gone. "Lost is lost, win back later. An Exian also once lost to you. Even I have opponents I cannot defeat," Guan comforted him. The blood prison great saint took a deep breath, trying to calm his emotions. Guan's lips twitched slightly, because he heard the thoughts of the blood prison great saint. The blood prison great saint internally asked, "But have you ever lost? If you achieve the primordial Tao Emperor status earlier than an Exian, perhaps you could surpass her." Guan pointed in a direction. The blood prison great saint looked up at him, reluctantly saying, "She is also chasing after the primordial Tao Emperor. Even if I am one step ahead, she will eventually catch up unless I have stronger divine skills than hers. The suppressive power of the immortal emperors I was too strong. After the immortal god reincarnation Emperor Tianhong lost to an Exian, he dared not challenge her again. Only by truly facing Enzin's immortal emperors I can one feel that despair. That may not be the case. The divine skills you have created have limitless potential. You just haven't thoroughly explored them. In fact, I have the most confidence in you, but don't tell the other disciples this," Guan said earnestly. Hearing this, the blood prison great saint was instantly excited, his eyes even glistening with tears. These words at this moment gave the blood prison great saint a great encouragement. He swept away the feelings of loss and confusion, becoming full of fighting spirit. He believed his master would not deceive him. "Master, I definitely will not disappoint you," the blood prison great saint promised, also pledging to himself. Guan followed up, "I want to send you to the path of the great Tao for training. Strive to become the first primordial Tao Emperor of Wuxia, and once you achieve it, you can return." Upon hearing this, the blood prison great saint's excitement calmed down. He did not immediately agree, appearing hesitant. He feared that after he left, Guan would adopt another mount. Not to mention, Celestial Cyan and Tianbai were eyeing his throne. Guan didn't comfort his concerns, joking that if he wanted to take a mount, would he need the blood prison great saint's permission? "I am very interested in the origins of the primordial Tao Emperor and the Taoist Emperor. You must not only grow stronger but also collect information on both. And when you return, I will help you perfect your divine skills," Guan said solemnly. Seeing his serious demeanor, the blood prison great saint dared not refuse, and could only agree. Guan let him rest for a few days, and then would send him to the path of the great Tao. Embracing this arrangement, the blood prison great saint began to look forward to the path of the great Tao. What kind of place is it? He must make a great name for Wuxia. The blood prison great saint thought his master might really send him, allowing him to build rapport along the way. However, once he was ready, the master simply waved his sleeve and sent him to the path of the great Tao. So this is how he's sent. The blood prison great saint's senses were rendered useless. He tightly closed his eyes, thinking bitterly. After a while, he felt his feet touch solid ground, his senses quickly returning to normal, and as he opened his eyes, his pupils widened. Before him was a magnificent Dao intent Qi Si, vast and boundless. He stood upon a meteor, feeling so small, with the darkness beyond the Dao intent Qi Si appearing terrifying, as though it could swallow him at any time. What a majestic Dao intent! The blood prison great saint murmured, the last bit of resistance in his heart disappearing completely. In such a place for cultivation, he might truly surpass an Xian again. Sarch * the Novelier. NET website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. The departure of the blood prison great saint left a quieter atmosphere in the Taoist field of the beginningless. Upon learning that had been sent by Guan to the path of the great Tao for training, everyone felt a sense of crisis. When the blood prison great saint returns, he will surely be more arrogant. Though they could no longer compete with the blood prison great saint, they did not wish to be mocked for their increasing gap. Thus, the Taoist field of the beginningless entered a period of secluded cultivation. The human world was also changing. As more and more sects rose, the Tao court's suppressive power declined, their control over the outer heaven was broken, and the sects of the human world sent disciples to the outer heaven for training, ushering in the first outer heaven craze of the new era. Reaching the outer heaven immortal stage allowed one to go to the outer heaven, but previously, due to the Tao court, cultivators found it difficult to venture there. As more cultivators went to the outer heaven, its stars began to be claimed. Some fled to the outer heaven, some opened little worlds or dojos there, and some even established sections. The human world was experiencing a flourishing era not seen in a million years. In this context, 100,000 years passed like pages in a book, leaving no trace. In those 100,000 years in the Taoist field of the beginningless, besides the ghost mother of ephemera, the weakest cultivation level was Tao void profound immortal realm, and an Xian was the first to reach the Zizai immortal realm, becoming the first free immortal among Wuxi's disciples. A 55,000-year-old free immortal, how dazzling! However, Enzin's reputation did not spread in the human world, but Emperor Tianhong could use her as a comparison to the world's prodigies, making him feel incredulous while also motivating him to cultivate harder. In the 2nd century after breaking through to Zizai Immortal, an Xian finally selected a favored disciple. She brought back a 6 or 7-year-old boy to the Taoist field of the beginningless, hoping Guan could bestow a name. This child did not come from the Qingkuan sect, but was an orphan from the 9-spirit continent, whose parents were killed by a demon beast. Had it not been for Enzin's intervention, he too would have perished. This experience reminded Guan of Hao from back then. Let's call him Enzizai. Guan looked at the timid boy hiding behind an Xian murmuring. An Xian asked with a smile. Is it because I've just reached the Zizai immortal realm? Guan shook his head saying, I just hope he's different from your senior brother, free from many burdens, and I hope in this life he can live freely and for himself. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 681. Vile Ancestor, Carefree and at Ease. An Xian murmured to herself, thinking of Hao, her mood somewhat heavy. When she was a child, her parents were eaten by demons. If Hao hadn't desperately protected her, she would have died too. In her heart, Hao was like her own brother. Even though they only depended on each other for a few years, before Hao soared far away, she constantly thought of him. Hao was like an eagle, never stopping, always soaring high, with missions constantly appearing in his path, ultimately dying for all living beings. In this life, he was reincarnated as Tian Hao, yet he had to head to the misty immortal court for the sake of the celestial spirit great world. After knowing Hao's destiny, Sheng Tian no longer resented this primordial ancestor. Instead, he took Hao as a goal, wanting to surpass Hao to prove that family's descendants were not a burden on Hao. Young Enzizai did not yet understand the meaning of his name. When an Xian fell silent, he couldn't help but shout to Guan, I have a name, I don't want to be called Enzizai. Guan asked with a smile. Then what's your name? My mother calls me Little Spring. You can keep that name. People can have more than one name. Gu An's words made Zizai feel much more relaxed. For some reason, being renamed made him very nervous, as if he was being sold. At this time, Shenzhen, the celestial demon child, and others arrived one after another, curious about Nzin's disciples' talent. Zizai's talent was naturally not lacking, with an ultimate lifespan of 9,999 years as well. On the Nine-Spirit continent, orphans like him were not in the minority, especially when the timeline was extended to tens of thousands of years. In the long years, such tragedies were countless. An Xian never deliberately managed these unless they appeared right before her. Zizai attracted Nzin's attention because he invoked the rules of heaven and earth in his despair, even though he had no cultivation level at all. However, the ultimate lifespan of 9,999 years is not uncommon in today's human world. Physical aptitude is no longer the most important. Unseen, untouchable comprehension determines how far a cultivator can go. Zizai's adorable appearance quickly won everyone's pity. Guan did not plan to teach Zizai, conveniently giving an Xian a chance to hone her teaching skills. Zizai's arrival broke the quiet atmosphere of the dojo, and the disciples stopped retreating, beginning to accompany Zizai's growth. This was Wuxi's first third-generation disciple. Even if the disciples had competitive hearts in teaching and passing on skills, they hoped Zizai would excel. Search * the novel Fire. Net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Thus, everyone took turns teaching Zizai. In the following decade, the Taoist field of the beginningless was quite lively. Though Zizai was an orphan, he was not solitary. In fact, he was somewhat carefree, often causing chaos in the dojo. At 17, Zizai had already formed a nascent soul, with outstanding talent, filling all the Wuxia disciples with confidence and expectation. In the summer, Guan was reading on a large tree by the mountain stream, enjoying the cool breeze. A figure appeared out of thin air beneath the tree, looking up at him. It was Zizai. He wore a fitted blue and white robe, his long hair casually tied with a cloth band. His handsome face still bore a hint of childlike innocence. "Hey, ancestor, why are you reading again? What book is so interesting?" Zizai called out. His divine sense couldn't approach Guan, so he didn't know what Guan was reading. Since childhood, Guan hadn't taught him cultivation, but under everyone's guidance, he knew the ancestor was the most powerful person in the world. However, Guan liked to tease him. When he was young, Guan would sometimes suddenly yank his pants, embarrassing him in public, so he didn't speak to Guan with much reverence, and even harbored some hostility. In his heart, this ancestor was too harsh. Whenever the uncles praised him, the ancestor would always criticize him, pointing out his shortcomings. The most crucial part was these flaws indeed existed, making him feel aggrieved. "This is a book for adults, don't ask." Guan replied casually. Although he didn't teach Zizai, he quite liked the boy. Zizai's arrival indeed made the dojo lively, life more interesting. Sometimes, Guan had to admit he was getting old. Elders like children the most. He wasn't like this before. After hearing this, Zizai became more curious about the book in Gu An's hands, but was displeased with Gu An's words, insisting he was already grown up. "Master asked me to tell you that the Magic Battle Conference of the Qiankuan sect is about to begin, and asked if you would like to go watch." Zizai continued to ask, very curious about this matter. Since coming to the Taoist field of the beginningless, he hadn't been out and was curious about everything outside. "I will go to watch, but I won't go with you all." "Humph." Zizai pouted, waved his fist at Guan, and then disappeared from where he stood. He was already eager to head to the Qiankuan sect. Guan didn't care about his small actions and continued reading, thoughts dwelling on the path of the Great Tao. The Blood Prison Great Saint had already successfully carried out a reincarnation projection, considered stepping on the road of the primordial Tao Emperor. Now over 1,000 beings had stepped onto the primordial Emperor road, and although no one truly became a primordial Tao Emperor, many forces were investigating the primordial Tao Emperor, even including the celestial court. Guan saw a celestial god investigating the primordial Tao Emperor, and even engaging in dialogue with one of the contenders for the primordial Tao Emperor. This celestial god seemed familiar to him. And although the other possessed the destiny of the celestial court, which could block deductions, he instantly noticed the resemblance between the celestial god and Long Xin. He vaguely speculated in his heart. Even if this celestial god had nothing to do with the Long family, Guan wouldn't deliberately suppress them. He had anticipated today's scenario when he opened the primordial Tao Emperor. He wasn't worried about anyone discovering him through the fortune of the primordial Tao Emperor. The fortune of the primordial Tao Emperor had already been established, equivalent to the Great Tao. The Great Tao is boundless. Who could trace it back to its root? Feng Xian grew well on the primordial Emperor road, his understanding of the Great Tao far surpassing those of the same realm after multiple reincarnation projections. Guan believed he wouldn't lose if he fought with someone of the same realm on the Emperor road. This indicated that the primordial Tao Emperor indeed held potential not inferior to that of the Taoist Emperor. After observing for an hour, Guan turned over and leapt down, tucking the green hero travelogue into his chest, then headed towards the Qiankuan sect. He wasn't going to watch the magic battle conference of the prodigies, but because an old friend had arrived at the Qiankuan sect. This old friend was none other than Profound Celestial Intent, the writer of the Green Hero Travelogue. After traveling the world for hundreds of thousands of years, it was the first time he came to the Qiankuan sect, bringing no particular purpose, just happening to arrive here. Guan looked forward to meeting him. They truly hadn't seen each other for hundreds of thousands of years, and Guan's Green Hero Travelogue was bought from the human world, not obtained directly from Profound Celestial Intent. Meanwhile, Profound Celestial Intent was strolling through the bustling main city of the Qiankuan sect. He had visited many flourishing sects like this. Walking amidst the crowd, he observed the ethos of this sect, seeking inspiration. This Qiankuan sect is indeed remarkable, not only deeply rooted, but I haven't witnessed a single act of bullying and oppressing the weak. Truly deserves to be the leader of the righteous Tao in this region. Profound Celestial Intent marveled internally, involuntarily thinking of the Supreme Sect. Since Guan left, he hadn't returned, unbeknownst if today's Supreme Sect still possessed such a spirit of the righteous Tao. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 682. The style of a Grandmaster. Profound Celestial Intent walked on the streets of the Qiankuan sect, thinking about the Supreme Sect. Although he missed the Supreme Sect, he had no desire to return. He did not want to shoulder too much responsibility. He desired more to roam the world freely. Even if the Supreme Sect had the extraordinary opportunities left by the supporting Tao Sword Venerable, he still did not wish to go back. Compared to the cultivation level, he had more pursuits. In his view, if one lived only to live longer, it would be very dull. He enjoyed experiencing the dust and grime of the human world, interacting with different people, and he liked writing these experiences down, hoping that those destined to see them would make his life worthwhile. Of course, the reason he was willing to stay away from the Supreme Sect was that Guan had left. Although Guan was gone, the sword intent left at the heaven repairing platform remained, showing that Guan still had affection for the Supreme Sect. With someone protecting the Supreme Sect, he had no worries. Hey fellow Taoist, you look unfamiliar. Is this your first time here? A voice interrupted Profound Celestial Intent's thoughts. He turned his head to see a middle-aged cultivator approaching. This person was wearing an elegant blue robe, his demeanor serious, exuding an extraordinary aura. Profound Celestial Intent stopped, waited for him to approach, and then spoke. I am Profound Celestial Intent indeed. It is my first time visiting the Qiankuan sect. I came to broaden my horizons after hearing about your grand assembly. He had entered the Qiankuan sect openly, registered his identity, and handed over spirit stones, so he was not worried about any trouble. The middle-aged cultivator spoke softly. I have a few books here that can help you better understand the Qiankuan sect. Would you like to look at them? Turns out he was promoting books. Profound Celestial Intent was somewhat disappointed. He couldn't discern the man's cultivation level, and had thought he was a great cultivator. Now it seemed the man likely possessed some secret treasure, and his cultivation was probably not high. How many spirit stones? Profound celestial intent asked. Being new here, he didn't want to instigate trouble. If it wasn't too expensive, he could consider it a good deed. 100 pieces of top-grade spirit stones, the middle-aged man said seriously. So expensive? Forget it. Profound celestial intent shook his head and walked away. Unexpectedly, the middle-aged man blocked him again, making him annoyed and ready to get angry. The middle-aged man raised his right hand, twisted his fingers to reveal 7 books, and profound celestial intent was drawn to their titles. Qianquan's Secret History, Elder's Apricot Loft Tour. That night, that wind, those emotions, just from the titles, profound celestial intent sensed an author's magnificent literary accomplishment, as if he saw a literary giant, comparable to himself. You definitely won't regret buying them. The middle-aged man said earnestly, as though imparting a world-class secret manual. Profound celestial intent asked, "May I take a look at a couple of pages?" The middle-aged man immediately took out a book and handed it to him. He accepted it, flipped a page casually, and was astounded. "I'll buy it. Do you have any more?" Profound celestial intent asked resolutely, determinedly. "No more, but there will be more in the future. If you're still here when the new books come out, I'll find you," the middle-aged man replied, shaking his head, always serious, leaving one unable to imagine him doing such things. His attitude greatly impressed profound celestial intent. What kind of conviction is this? CTH Ovalfire. @ website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. May I ask for your name, fellow Taoist? After the transaction, profound celestial intent raised his hand to salute and asked, his tone full of respect. The middle-aged man returned the salute and then left with a single sentence. "I am Zhang Chuanqiu." Zhang Chuanqiu? Profound celestial intent remembered the name, deciding to write it into his book. Subsequently, profound celestial intent lost interest in sightseeing, and quickly found an inn to savor the newly acquired treasure. Elsewhere, the Magic Battle Conference of the Qianquan sect officially began, and Zizai followed an Xian to see the excitement. They were warmly received by the Qianquan sect's senior members. Hearing that Zizai was Zin's disciple made the senior members gaze at him fervently. Wuxia previously sent Tian Hao to the Qianquan sect, a person who truly made the Qianquan sect famous worldwide, bearing profound significance. An Xian was Wuxi's eldest disciple. To be taken as her disciple meant that Zizai must be an extraordinary existence. However, they did not dare to recruit rashly. They simply endeavored to please Zizai. In the pavilion observing the battle, Yuan Luo sat on a chair, looking far towards the pavilion where the elders gathered, his eyes landing on Zizai, frowning slightly. He naturally recognized an Xian and respected her greatly. In his youth, an Xian had even given him a spell. Yet seeing the elders' attitude made him somewhat unhappy. The Qianquan sect was fine everywhere except for a lack of confidence, always needing Wuxi's assistance. The 20 prodigies previously sent by Wuxia were indeed strong. A few even made him troubled, but these people stuck together and never truly integrated into the Qianquan sect. Sometimes he worried they might betray them. In his view, where in this world is their perpetual giving? Why did Wuxia help the Qianquan sect so much? If in the future, Wuxia needed reciprocation, how could the Qianquan sect refuse? Always relying on others, when can they become independent? The Tao court is like this, with too many factions, always clashing, unable to truly rule the world. Sometimes, one decision stirs internal debate for decades, centuries, and even the master of the Tao court lacks absolute power. Yuan Luo noted Zizai's appearance, and Zizai seemed to sense something, turning to look at him. Their eyes met in the distance, and Yuan Luo quickly averted his gaze. Zizai frowned slightly, feeling uncomfortable under Yuan Luo's stare. That person's name is Yuan Luo. He was once our Qianquan sect's top genius, quite remarkable. I can have him teach you divine skills, Yi Qingshan said to Zizai beside him, smiling. Sitting beside the sect hierarch, such treatment stirred not only Yuan Luo's interest. Many disciples discussed Zizai's background. Zizai shook his head. Thank you, sect hierarch, for the offer, But I have my master and martial uncle's guidance, no need to trouble you. His words shook Yi Qingshan and the senior members. So many of Wuxi's disciples teach him? It seems Wuxia intends to nurture him heavily. This intensified the senior members' desire to recruit in Zizai. They wouldn't doubt Wuxia but instead believe in Zizai's future was boundless, destined to become renowned worldwide. LV Xian, Chen Chuan, and Sheng Tian already had world-renowned names. This young man was likely to surpass these three, and Zizai felt uncomfortable with their gazes, so he could only direct his attention to the ongoing combat ahead. In the dim void, countless meteors drifted, while afar, nebulas shifted their forms, wondrously beautiful. Feng Xian, clad in red, walked on a sword, his robe fluttering, embodying the grace of an immortal. Feng Xian's gaze was forward, his eyes calm, but his heart was slightly anxious. I wonder what the peers will think of me. Feng Xian journeyed to this void, sensing the destiny of the primordial Dao Emperor here, not the true primordial Dao Emperor, as the destiny was lesser, but close. He had studied the primordial Dao Emperor for many years, encountering a bottleneck now, urgently wishing to exchange insights with others. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 683. The most idle person. Feng Xian journeyed through the meteor ocean, feeling the increasingly intense destiny unique to the pursuers of the primordial Dao Emperor, which made his heart more uneasy. On the path of the great Dao, cultivators pursuing the Daoist Emperor would fight upon meeting. He wondered if those chasing the primordial Dao Emperor would do the same? To become the primordial Dao Emperor, there is no need to kill each other, which is why he dared to come. But the path of the great Dao has no rules, and there will always be those who recklessly act, so he cannot guarantee that such interactions won't cause him trouble. Regardless, he had already come. Feng Xian released his aura, wanting to let the other party sense him. Do you also wish to become the primordial Dao Emperor? A voice came from ahead, surprisingly that of the Blood Prison Great Saint. In the depths of the void, the Blood Prison Great Saint sat in meditation on a meteor, eyes open, looking towards the direction Feng Xian flew from. Appreciation showed in his eyes, not just because Feng Xian was a kindred spirit, but also because Feng Xian's attire suited his taste. I am Feng Xian, indeed wishing to become the primordial Dao Emperor. I hope I haven't disturbed you, fellow Daoist. Feng Xian's voice came with a tone of anticipation. He did not immediately approach the Blood Prison Great Saint, but maintained a safe distance. The Blood Prison Great Saint stood up, gazing from afar at Feng Xian, scrutinizing him. Feng Daoist, I did want to meet other kindred spirits. Would you come over for a chat? The Blood Prison Great Saint responded, his tone somewhat warm, making Feng Xian breathe a sigh of relief. The Blood Prison Great Saint had long wanted to converse with a kindred spirit, not for cultivation, but to complete the tasks assigned by his master. He came to the path of the Great Dao not only for cultivation, but also to gather intel on the Daoist Emperor and the primordial Dao Emperor. Feng Xian appeared in front of the Blood Prison Great Saint out of thin air, raising his hand in greeting. The Blood Prison Great Saint smiled, warmly grabbing Feng Xian's wrist and pulling him to sit down for a chat. Feng Xian remained slightly vigilant, but as their conversation deepened, he grew fond of the Blood Prison Great Saint. The Blood Prison Great Saint began by sharing his insights without reservation, speaking boldly without probing Feng Xian. Having lived until today, Feng Xian had experienced a lot of deceit, and could discern that the Blood Prison Great Saint bore no scheming, only infinite curiosity about the primordial Dao Emperor. He too was filled with curiosity about the primordial Dao Emperor, feeling he could enjoy a pleasant rapport with the Blood Prison Great Saint. After the Blood Prison Great Saint finished sharing his insights, Feng Xian too spoke without reservation, which also gained the Blood Prison Great Saint's favor. This person is good, can befriend. This was the Blood Prison Great Saint's sentiment. Having been on the path of the Great Dao for so many years, he felt lonely, long wanting someone to talk to. The two felt an instant connection, lamenting not having met earlier. When the Blood Prison Great Saint revealed he came from the celestial spirit great world, under the primordial sword master, Feng Xian was shocked, which puzzled the blood prison great saint, who inquired about it. After hesitating for a moment, Feng Xian disclosed his origin. Upon hearing that Feng Xian was once a battle court disciple and participated in the attack on the celestial spirit Great World, later being exterminated by the supporting Dao Sword Venerable, the blood prison great saint couldn't help but laugh. Just when Feng Xian thought the blood prison great saint would mock him, the blood prison great saint laughed and said, "The fact that you survived under my master's hand means you weren't meant to die, although it must be confessed that my master showed mercy. To be honest, I've had the same experience as you." Feng Xian was surprised, not expecting the blood prison great saint to have had a similar experience. He immediately inquired about his past, and the blood prison great saint began to recount his tale. Knowing that the blood prison great saint came from the mortal world, nearly killing the supporting Dao Sword Venerable's disciple after ascending, and was eventually subdued by the Sword Venerable, gaining an unprecedented opportunity, made Feng Xian hold the supporting Dao Sword Venerable in even greater esteem. Let alone, in that battle, the supporting Dao Sword Venerable really could have annihilated all battle court beings. This supporting Dao Sword Venerable was truly merciful, a deservedly enlightened great power. He felt that the Sword Venerable acted so, considering that many of the battle court disciples were against their will, much like himself, having no choice but to follow orders from the sect. After their honest exchange, their relationship improved, and the blood prison great saint proposed they become sworn brothers, to Feng Xian's delight. They immediately knelt and swore to the supporting Dao Sword Venerable and the Great Dao, which left Guan at the Daoist field of the beginningless both laughing and crying. Karma is indeed interesting. Although he could not predict how the primordial Dao Emperor would develop, he could precisely forecast the futures of the blood prison great saint and Feng Xian. The two would venture together on the path of the Great Dao, even expanding their sworn brotherhood to include other prodigies, chasing the primordial Dao Emperor. Eventually, the blood prison great saint would bid farewell to his brothers and return alone to the celestial spirit Great World, while Feng Xian and the others would continue to make a name for themselves on the path of the Great Dao, with their future being immeasurable. Millennia passed swiftly. One day, in early summer, Guan was fishing in the dojo, holding a fishing rod in one hand and a book in the other, a new work by Profound Celestial Intent. Through his minor manipulations, Profound Celestial Intent remained in the Qiankuan sect, waiting for more books to appear before him, unaware that these books contain Dao intent, causing Profound Celestial Intent to frequently achieve enlightenment and steadfastly decide to linger a while longer. Yes, just linger a little longer. He's destined to roam the earth. CTH Novel F.I.R. Net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. With this mindset, Profound Celestial Intent eagerly anticipated more works from that mysterious author. Even if it meant waiting 100 years for a book, he thought it worth it. As Guan enjoyed a peaceful moment of relaxation, a figure appeared behind him. "Ancestor, Master won't let me go out, fearing that if I leave I won't return. But I just want to go out for some experience, and I will come back eventually." And Zizai said aggrievedly, his temperament still youthful at 1,000 years old, because he had yet to experience life's trials. And he knew this, hence his desire to gain experience, just like the prodigies of the Qiankuan sect. Guan, with his back turned to him, responded casually, "You underestimate the hold of the mortal world. Once you go out, you might not return. I can't make this decision. If you want to go out, persuade your master. Frankly, even if you don't come back, I won't mind." Although Guan didn't mind Zizai, he cared a lot about an Xian. Knowing how much an Xian cherished Zizai, he didn't want to interfere with Zizai's life. Hearing his words, Zizai couldn't help but glare at him, feeling his ancestor's nature was as perverse as ever. Zizai rolled his eyes and asked, "Ancestor, how about if I go to visit my uncles?" LV Xian and the others were far from the nine-spirit continent, a journey long enough for him to gain experience. "Ask your master." "Can you just speak a little bit for me?" "Ask your master." "You." No matter how Zizai tried to persuade him, Guan remained unmoved, leaving him quite frustrated. Just then, an Xian appeared beside him, scaring him into bowing quickly. An Exian frowned, saying solemnly, "Haven't I told you not to disturb your ancestors' cultivation without reason? Is this considered cultivation?" And Zizai couldn't help but retort. Ever since he became aware, he had never seen Guan cultivate. In his opinion, among the beginningless, the most idle was Guan. Unpleased, and Zin's eyes flashed and she scolded, "Kneel and apologize." And Zizai felt aggrieved to the point of bursting, yet chose to obediently kneel. Guan turned around, smiling at Zizai, making his eyes redden. An Exian looked towards Guan, asking, "Master, can you predict whether he will return if he goes out?" And Zizai suddenly felt hopeless, believing Guan would certainly not speak up for him. "He will return, but he will go through many events," Guan casually replied, surprising Zizai. Guan had not spoken. He had discerned Zizai's destiny upon leaving the dojo. Eventually, the kid would return, but before that, he'd face many trials, perhaps bearing some missions. Of course, these missions were only within the celestial spirit great world, and weren't significant in Guan's eyes. But as long as this kid could resolve them on his own, he was disinclined to interfere. And Zizai was certainly not the last Wuxia disciple. There would be new disciples in the future, so Guan did not consider him crucial. An Exian understood her master's implication, and Zizai would experience many things, and they would undoubtedly be quite challenging. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 684. Are you ready to face life's challenges? You will meet many people, and you may make enemies. Perhaps you will fall in love with someone, but in the end, it might be unfulfilled. Even so, you still want to go out? An Exian looked at Zizai and asked, her tone melancholy. And Zizai was overjoyed upon hearing this, because his master finally relented. Gain or lose, it is my fate. I just want to see, not necessarily to gain anything. And Zizai looked up at his master, and answered seriously. Watching his expression, an Exian sighed, took out her Tao treasure, the Six Paths mirror, and handed it to Zizai, saying, "This is my magical treasure. I'll lend it to you. Go visit Chinchuan. Show him this mirror, and he will see you. Tell him I would like you to follow him to cultivate swordsmanship." As Zizai took the Six Paths mirror and was about to say something, an Exian handed him a jade pendant, saying it could guide his direction. "Go now or I'll change my mind," an Exian said with an indifferent expression. Guan glanced back at Zizai and laughed. "Look at you making your master so angry, such impiety." Because of what he said earlier. And Zizai initially felt grateful, but now that sense of gratitude vanished. "Master, I will come back." And Zizai quickly knelt, kowtowed to an Exian, then stood up, glared at Guan, and turned to leave. An Exian watched as Zizai disappeared into the horizon, and then bowed towards Guan, silently departing. Guan didn't console an Exian. Instead, he had a mischievous feeling as if watching a play. People always long for freedom. The harder the challenges, the stronger the desire for freedom. Guan said leisurely. He had taken on many disciples and knew this very well. However, everything must be experienced. An Exian wanting to take a disciple has to face the disciple's mindset. After all, a disciple is human, with thoughts of their own. At this moment, the fishing rod quivered, and finally, a fish took the bait. Guan immediately gripped the fishing rod with both hands, starting a battle of wits with the fish in the lake. Water splashed, scattering onto the leaves, with sunshine illuminating the droplets, making them appear as if they held tiny worlds within. And Zizai's departure once again left the Taoist field of the beginningless quiet, with other disciples also starting to retreat into seclusion for cultivation. For Guan, the liveliness or quietness of the dojo wasn't the most important aspect. Time seemed to speed up with each passing moment. 800 years later, Guan returned to this spot to fish, holding a book in his other hand while waiting for a fish to take the bait. The sunlight was bright, making the lake's surface glisten, and a gentle breeze blew through, ruffling his hair. A figure emerged from the woods behind him. A man in a warrior's cloth robe, with disheveled hair, a weathered face, and stubble around his mouth. His eyes carried a look of sorrow. It was Nzazai. Compared to 800 years ago, he was a different person, devoid of his previous spirit, and his demeanor appeared desolate. Nzazai looked at Guan's back, somewhat dazed, with a slight change in his eyes. He suddenly recalled the scene from years ago when he left, with the ancestor also fishing here, turning his back to him, the silhouette unchanged, giving him a sense of traversing time and space. Disciple greets the ancestor. Nzazai approached Guan from behind, bowing respectfully, his voice filled with melancholy. "It's good to be back." Guan replied without turning his head to look at Nzazai. He already knew what Nzazai had gone through over these years. 800 years seemed like a day to him, but for many, it was a long, lengthy passage of time. During these 800 years, Nzazai experienced many things, witnessing the tragic deaths of brothers, those he loved, unable to protect those who trusted him. Too many blows had crushed his former vivacity. If not for Nzin's Six Paths mirror protecting him, he wouldn't know how many times he would have died. Nzazai raised his eyes to look at Guan, taking a deep breath, asking, "Ancestor, is there truly justice and fairness in this world? Why do some commit atrocities but still enjoy people's adoration? And even when their sect knows of their crimes, they cover for them?" He was referring to a great cultivator of Taoist Zongzizai immortal from one of the 100 sects, the Baidu sect. The disciple of that great cultivator worked for him, capturing mortals among the people, and even some cultivators fell victim, committing all sorts of atrocities. Nzazai and his friends, upon witnessing injustice, offended the great cultivator's disciple, triggering a series of grudges. Nzazai was hunted for over 100 years, and once lay in hiding for 100 years before finally killing that disciple, only to uncover the truth. Helpless before Taoist Zongzizai immortal suppression, he could only watch his beloved ones dying. Even the Baidu sect continued to hunt him. And if not for his timely escape to Qinchuan's sword sect, he would have already been killed. The sword sect was nowhere near as powerful as the Baidu sect, yet the legend of the beginningless still lingered in the world, giving the Baidu sect pause. The path of cultivating immortality does not lie in the short term. What you see is just a fragment of the vast mortal world. In years to come, what puzzles you will surely have answers. Those evils and seemingly invincible will also be obliterated, while right and wrong will be judged by future generations. Guan responded absent-mindedly. For disciples venturing out, he only ensured their survival but would not aid in revenge, so he wouldn't interfere with Nzazai's vendettas. If he desired revenge, he must cultivate diligently and rely on himself. Nzazai's gaze became complex as he continued questioning. "Ancestor, you must have lived for a long time. In your view, does justice prevail in this world, or is it a matter of survival of the fittest?" Looking back, no matter who laughs last, when facing history, they all must raise the banner of justice. This indicates that at least in this world, justice is what all beings desire, and it cannot be shaken. This was Guan's most patient response to Nzazai, without any mockery or ridicule, answering each of his questions seriously. After hearing, Nzazai fell into silence. A thought also flashed through his mind, and that was to kneel and ask the ancestor to avenge him. If the Baidu sect could stand up for their disciple, perhaps the ancestor would as well. But the thought came quickly and disappeared just as fast. SE of the Novel Fire. Net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. After all, despite Baidu sect's injustice, it was he who actively intervened. Moreover, back then neither the ancestor nor the master wanted him to go out, but he insisted on venturing out for training. Sometimes, he wondered if those people might have escaped a disaster if he hadn't gone out. The more Nzazai thought about it, the more uncomfortable he became, even nearly unable to breathe. "I can go into the reincarnation and retrieve all the people you care about, bringing them back to life. But you have to consider one point. In their next life, they might fare better, or after being resurrected, they might endure more suffering. You cannot predict any circumstance." Guan's voice floated over, making Nzazai's face change dramatically, his eyes revealing an expression of disbelief. "Into reincarnation? Resurrection? And Zizai knew the ancestor was powerful, but he never grasped just how powerful. Yet hearing the ancestor's words today, he was shocked, as if the entire world before him instantly brightened. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 685. Removing the Son of Heaven. And Zizai was shaken by Gu An's words for a long time. When he came to his senses, he began to seriously ponder the words of the ancestor. Should he choose revival? He indeed lacked the courage to say he could protect others for a lifetime, let alone those old friends who had been dead for many years and might have already reincarnated. He remembered his master once said that reincarnation is natural, and many great powers even rely on reincarnation for cultivation. Knowing that his old friends had entered reincarnation brought him some comfort. He originally thought that his old friends would be lost forever, with no hope for reincarnation. After contemplating for a long time, and Zizai looked at Guan and replied, "Let things take their natural course. I don't want to interfere in their lives anymore, but I will strive to cultivate, avenge them, and fulfill my mission." The brother closest to him had said before dying that perhaps he was the hope to overthrow the Baidu sect, that he would become the savior. In the eyes of those people, the Baidu sect was the most powerful existence, covering the skies with one hand. And Zizai had also felt the strength of the Baidu sect. For now he couldn't think of how to topple the Baidu sect. The human world was vast, and almost every place he had been to was under the control of the Baidu sect. Even when encountering cultivators of the Qianquan sect, they were full of dread for the Baidu sect. From a young age, Zizai had been instilled with the idea that his ancestor was the strongest, but after going out once, this thought wavered. Even knowing the ancestor could enter reincarnation, he did not feel that the ancestor could reverse the fortunes with sheer personal power. After hearing Zizai's choice, Guan said nothing more. Zizai then paid his respects and turned to leave. Zizai's aura attracted the attention of the dojo disciples, who left their seclusion one after another to seek out Zizai. Guan continued fishing, but his ears were eavesdropping on their conversations. When the Wuxia disciples learned of Zizai's experiences, they were filled with righteous indignation. Even the celestial demon child wanted to visit the Baidu sect, but in the end, was subdued by an Xian. "Uncles, I will take this revenge personally. From now on, I will train diligently. I have seen the worldly affairs of the human world, and I will not let you down again." Zizai said earnestly, having reignited his fighting spirit after conversing with the ancestor and many mentors. Though he had lost much, he was not left with nothing. He not only had to seek revenge, but also to protect the Wuxia. Emperor Tianhong snorted and said, "What Baidu sect? When you want revenge in the future, I will accompany you. Rest assured, you shall collect the heads of your enemies." SE The Oval Fire. Website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Zizai couldn't help but look at Emperor Tianhong. Of all the uncles, Emperor Tianhong was the one he respected and feared the most, for Emperor Tianhong rarely spoke, often just watching him in silence. Though Emperor Tianhong didn't like talking to him, he had taught him spells, making him family in Zizai's heart. Moreover, Zizai believed that Emperor Tianhong could very well be the second strongest within the Wuxia, next only to the ancestor, and the aura exuded by Emperor Tianhong made him aspire. Hearing such grand words from Emperor Tianhong, Zizai did not question it. Instead, it made his heart warm, filling him with a profound sense of security. With such mentors around, the unease brought by the Baidu sect gradually dissipated. An Xian glanced at Emperor Tianhong and said, "You should still cultivate diligently." Emperor Tianhong shifted his gaze and did not retort. "Nephew, tell us what the current human world is like." Celestial Cyan looked at Zizai and asked curiously. Zizai nodded and began to describe the landscapes he had seen, including the sword sect founded by Chen Chuan. The Wuxia disciples had also gone out to train before, comparing their memories with Zizai's descriptions, which made them feel the world had changed greatly. Unfortunately, they could not grasp from Zizai's words what the top cultivation level in the human world was now. When Nzizai mentioned that the ninth heaven of the immortal path was the Zizai immortal realm, his face was filled with a look of longing, which almost made the crowd laugh, but they restrained themselves and tactfully did not expose it. Within the Qi Sea of the path of the Great Tao, the stars shone brilliantly, and a beam of golden light swept across the top of the Qi Sea. Countless figures advancing within it, all donned in golden battle armor, with an imposing and unstoppable aura. Zhang Buku and Suyu walked amidst the celestial army, rather inconspicuous. Their gazes were fixed on the hulking figure at the forefront of the army. Celestial Calming God. Celestial Calming God was clad in heavy and commanding celestial armor, wielding a large saber, with Dharma aspects ebbing and flowing around him as he walked. Are we dealing with the chaos evil demon again this time? Zhang Buku asked Suyu in a low voice, while other heavenly soldiers were also discussing, all very excited. To be able to enter the celestial army, one must be a peerless talent and a great power from various realms, and they only got excited about combat. In great battles, it's the easiest to seize destiny and accumulate merit. Their goal is to become a celestial god like the celestial calming god. Suyu replied. Probably not. If it were the chaos evil demon, there would have been word of it long ago. There hasn't been a whisper, which means that perhaps what's happening next isn't by the will of the Tsangtian, but a personal matter of the immortal gods. His gaze swept from side to side, seemingly searching for someone. A personal matter of the immortal gods? Zhang Buku was even more puzzled. Do not assume the immortal gods only act for all living beings. They too have their struggles over interests. Suyu said, his face calm beyond measure. Shedding his beggar appearance, even wearing the heavenly soldier's battle armor, he looked unsuited, unlike Zhang Buku who seemed imposing and majestic. Why is this not about seeking treasures for the immortal gods? How do you conclude it's an internal struggle among the immortal gods? Zhang Buku pursued further. He had long realized Suyu wasn't simple. In the Tai's great world, Suyu already acted as if omniscient. Now that they were within the celestial army, Suyu could still answer his questions, filling him with confusion. Based on their tens of thousands of years of life and death bonds, however, he trusted Suyu wouldn't harm him. Because this is the path of the Great Tao, a place that cannot be deduced, and where the destiny of the celestial court cannot encompass. Acting here won't be discovered by the celestial court. And even if an immortal god falls here, it's hard to find the true culprit. Suyu's words made Zhang Buku frown. And the surrounding heavenly soldiers, upon hearing this, inquired with Suyu. The two had joined the celestial army for hundreds of thousands of years, and made many friends. Suyu had no reservations and answered whoever asked him. The celestial calming god at the forefront seemed not to notice him, and never looked back. Time swiftly passed. The golden light extended infinitely, and the celestial army's steps never halted, as though trudging along an endless path. For a long time, a vast and overwhelming pressure emanated from ahead, enveloping tens of thousands of heavenly soldiers within the army, causing them all to change their expression. Celestial calming god halted his steps, and with his pause, all heavenly soldiers followed suit, feeling the terrifying pressure from the front, standing solemnly and not daring to speak. Celestial calming god, do you truly intend to annihilate us to the bitter end? A voice filled with murderous intent resounded from the front, the tone full of indignation. Celestial calming god's face was expressionless as he said, choosing the wrong team, picking the wrong camp. One should face a fate of endless calamity, no matter where you flee. You should be grateful that it's me coming instead of that immortal monarch. The mysterious voice followed. Ridiculous. Even the Son of Heaven dares to eliminate you. Your fate and that of Huangfeng immortal monarch will be worse than mine. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 686. Myriad Supreme Palm Son of Heaven? Huangfeng Immortal Monarch? Zhang Buku, upon hearing these two names, felt himself being swept into a terrifying conflict among the immortal gods. However, he did not feel afraid, as he had no choice in the matter. The heavens have their own justice, except the celestial punishment. The celestial calming god raised a giant sword, and a boundless burst of mana erupted, forming a towering Dharma aspect tens of thousands of feet tall, also wielding a sword. Without waiting for the celestial calming god's command, the Dharma aspect swung its blade, as if Pangu was splitting heaven and earth, cutting out a dazzling white light that seemed to want to cleave the cosmic void before it in half. The Qi below the great Tao churned violently, creating a spectacle of unparalleled grandeur. All the heavenly soldiers held their breath, their eyes fixed intently forward, the bright light reflecting on their faces, their expressions so stern and unyielding. It wasn't the first time they had witnessed the celestial calming god in action, so they were not shocked, but each time they felt the immense power of the celestial calming god, their hearts would stir with hot-blooded ambition. They too wanted to become such a dominating and powerful celestial god. As the celestial calming god's Dharma aspect swung its blade, the cosmic void ahead shattered in the white light, revealing an incredibly massive figure from the darkness, shrouded entirely in black aura. Far larger than the 10,000-foot-high Dharma aspect of the celestial calming god, making all the heavenly soldiers feel insignificant by comparison. Many heavenly soldiers were startled. This figure's demeanor seemed related to the celestial court, yet their appearance was akin to a chaos evil demon, leading to more speculation about the celestial court. Form ranks, slay the foe. The voice of the celestial calming god roared like thunder, and without hesitation, he leapt forward, leading the charge towards the formidable figure. Tens of thousands of heavenly soldiers immediately began to cast spells, forming ranks, as mighty celestial Tao destiny gathered together, creating an oppressive and terrifying momentum that soared higher and higher, as if the majestic might of heaven was awakening. Time flew by, and it had already been 10,000 years since Nzizai returned, and Nzizai focused on his cultivation, making rapid progress in his cultivation level. Yet the path of immortal cultivation is long. No matter how fast he cultivated within 10,000 years, he could not catch up with other Wuxia disciples. With those 800 years of experience, his Tao heart became more stable, and he no longer desired to venture out for experience. He diligently practiced day and night, which greatly satisfied an exine. Guan, however, was somewhat displeased, thinking that Nzizai had become less interesting. He began to look forward to other disciples taking on apprentices. After an exine took on an apprentice, others indeed began to prepare to take on apprentices. However, with Nzizai's exceptional talent, they had yet to find suitable candidates in the Qiankuan sect or the Nine-Spirit continent, so they had been waiting. The world is vast, with many talents, but for the Nine-Spirit continent, a talent like Nzizai is incredibly rare, 1 in 10,000 years. Days passed quietly, and Guan occasionally paid attention to the state of the path of the Great Tao. The primordial Tao Emperor's influence was growing, with the number of Tao seekers exceeding 3,000, although many more desired to become the primordial Tao Emperor, yet many perished on the journey. On the path of the Great Tao, some matters related to Zhangbuku also caught Guan's attention. Shrouded by the destiny of the celestial court, Zhangbuku's actions were difficult to fully foresee, but his extensive activities always left traces, allowing one to follow his trail. The heavenly army to which Zhangbuku belonged was active on the path of the Great Tao, conquering in all directions, causing many forces to be apprehensive. One of the followers of the primordial Tao Emperor expressed confusion to others about why the celestial court was so ostentatious, unlike their past conduct. Guan did not interfere with the actions of the celestial court, as long as they posed no threat to him. On this day, Guan had just returned to the Taoist field of the beginningless, sitting on a cliff, playing with the wooden plaque formed by the 72 immortals of Jin Dong, his gaze falling on the reincarnation of Tai Immortal Monarch. This live's Tai Immortal Monarch had lived for over 10,000 years, a disciple of one of the 100 sects in the human world, considered to have exceptional talent, currently experiencing his own life. The present Tai Immortal Monarch seemed to have fully integrated into the celestial spirit great world. Yet his celestial Tao immortal position would eventually lead him out of this realm. Sar the Novel Fire. Net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Aside from the celestial court coming to seek Tai, immortal monarch, the reincarnation of the chaos evil demon, Yuan Luo, had also sowed the seeds of disaster in this realm. Guan pondered on how to face the celestial court. One day, he knew he would have to make a choice, whether to join the celestial court, oppose it, or live a life of hiding everywhere. Just as Guan contemplated the future, an Xian appeared behind him. Master, could you personally teach Zizai a piece of great divine power? An Xian asked after performing a bow to Guan. The most powerful divine skill she mastered was the immortal Emperor's Eye, but this divine skill was strictly forbidden by Guan to be passed on, so she dared not mention it to Zizai. And Zizai's talent and comprehension were both excellent, and his current cultivation achievements were remarkable, excelling in all respects. However, this made him lack his unique skill, making an Xian feel it was a bit unsatisfactory. In the Taoist field of the beginningless, everyone possessed a unique piece of great divine power as their trump card. Guan responded, "He's not worried himself, so why are you so anxious?" An Xian replied helplessly, "He will eventually seek revenge on the Beidou sect, where strong individuals abound and prodigies are numerous. With his abilities, it's hard to exact revenge. Since he will inevitably face the Beidou sect, why not teach him in advance?" "Is that so?" Guan said lazily, showing little interest in teaching that boy in Zizai. An Xian squatted beside him, grabbed his arm, and started to act coy, continuously pleading with him, abandoning her usual serious and solemn demeanor. If Zizai saw this, he would no doubt be stunned. All right. Unable to withstand his beloved apprentice's coquetry, Guan could only agree. There's no better time than the present, I'll teach him today. An Xian, delighted, stood up and disappeared from the spot with him. A stick of incense's time later, a refreshed Zizai, clad in clean robes, arrived behind Guan, respectfully saluting, unable to show the same disrespect to Guan as in his youth. Only after experiencing certain things did he realize how difficult everything he had now was to obtain. And everything he now possessed was brought to him by the ancestor. Even when his master took him as a disciple, it required the approval of the ancestor. "What divine skill do you want to learn?" Guan asked as he stood up, turning to face him. The breeze grazed Guan's black attire, and he still exuded the carefree immortal aura that transcended worldly constraints. On the way, Zizai had already made up his mind, and he answered without hesitation. "I want to learn a divine skill that can bring justice to the world, capable of forcefully suppressing all injustice." Guan's lips curled slightly, amusedly saying, "Speak so righteously, isn't it just about wanting a sufficiently domineering divine skill?" And Zizai scratched his head in embarrassment after hearing this. Seeing this gesture, Guan inwardly nodded in satisfaction. This was more like him in the past, not so weary and stagnant. "I recently created a palm technique that may satisfy you," continued Guan. "You just created it?" And Zizai hesitated slightly, suspecting that the ancestor wanted to use him to test it out. Though he had changed greatly in character, his memory remained, and the ancestor was great in all respects, except that he loved to tease him. Guan introduced, "This palm technique is named Myriad Supreme Palm, consisting of 7 palms. Mastering the first palm alone is enough to quell all chaos in the world. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 687. As Godly as Stabilizing the World. CTH Novelfire. Net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Myriad Supreme Palm. And Zizai muttered the name of this palm technique, having heard Guan say that the first palm could quell all the chaos of the world, which made him anticipate and feel pleasantly surprised. The name itself sounds powerful. "Please, ancestor, teach me." And Zizai immediately knelt down, speaking with a face full of expectation. Guan looked at him, smiled, and said, "The Myriad Supreme Palm is a secret skill I created after comprehending the Great Tao. It consists of 7 palms, equivalent to 7 kinds of great divine power. The first palm I will teach you is named World Stabilizing Like a God." and Zizai listened patiently. This was Gu An's first time teaching him, and he wanted to prove his talent, so he was very attentive. Gradually, his mind became immersed. He was entering the Tao. It wasn't that his comprehension was astonishing, but rather Guan was guiding him with his Tao intent. Since an Xian had spoken, and Zizai was the first to cultivate the myriad supreme palm, Guan naturally had to teach earnestly. He was bound to ensure Zizai's myriad supreme palm would become renowned. Unknown how much time had passed. When Zizai awakened, his eyes became clear, and it was now nighttime. He instinctively looked around and did not find ancestors' silhouette. He took a deep breath, reminiscing about the insights in his mind, and his spirit trembled. He had never encountered such a powerful secret skill before. He hadn't even mastered it yet, but just recalling the inherited memory, he felt this secret skill was invincible in the world. This was only the first palm. What kind of incredible power would the seventh palm possess? For the first time, he became intensely curious about ancestors' Tao practice. What kind of cultivation level was needed to create such a secret skill? And Zizai suddenly wanted to follow Guan by his side to cultivate. Previously, he thought Guan was annoying and would keep his distance, but now, he was curious about everything about Guan. How high is ancestors' Tao practice? What kind of life has he experienced? Why does ancestor refuse to appear in the world? So many questions aroused in Zizai's sense of rebirth, even filling him with fighting spirit. Thus, in the days that followed, Zizai began to stick to Guan. As long as Guan was in the dojo, he would go to Gu An's side to cultivate the myriad supreme palm. As time passed, the Wuxia disciples gradually learned that Guan had created a secret skill, but they didn't ask Zizai about how to cultivate the myriad supreme palm. Without Gu An's orders, they didn't dare act rashly. This had been a rule cultivated over hundreds of thousands of years, where disciples would not exchange divine skills, and they had full confidence in their own divine skills. In the void, countless meteors floated silently in the darkness. The blood prison great saint and Feng Xian sat shoulder to shoulder, cultivating together. Feng Xian opened his eyes, exhaled a breath of turbid air, and his eyes became complex. How many lifetimes have you projected? The blood prison great saint's voice came from beside him, with a tone of exhaustion. Feng Xian glanced over, seeing blood prison great saint's expression was somewhat desolate as well. He replied, 27 lifetimes, all were bitter. The blood prison great saint followed with a sigh, 21 lifetimes, I was bitter too. Both fell into silence together. After a while, perhaps experiencing enough failures can prepare one for all future hardships. The strength of the primordial Tao Emperor isn't just about cultivation level and divine skills, but also a robust Tao heart, Feng Xian sighed. He could hardly imagine how many reincarnations the real primordial Tao Emperor had experienced, and what kind of mindset he had when looking at the great Tao, at all things. Perhaps they hadn't heard of the primordial Tao Emperor before because he had already transcended, without any desire for fame or gain. The blood prison great saint nodded, saying, the higher my achievement in cultivating this path, the more I revere the primordial Tao Emperor. No wonder my master sent me to cultivate. I feel the primordial Tao Emperor is stronger than the Taoist Emperor. Feng Xian smiled and replied, that's inevitable. The Taoist Emperor relies purely on slaughter, and does not cultivate the heart. The two continuously expressed their longing for the primordial Tao Emperor. Even though they had cultivated up to now, they still couldn't see the day when their Tao would be complete, but having each other, they felt more confident and less confused. Just as the two were having an unending exchange, a dazzling light erupted from the depths of the darkness, catching their attention. An overwhelming aura came, causing them to frown. Boom! A Jinghong shot over swiftly, making the void where the blood prison great saint and Feng Xian resided as bright as day. The two looked up to see a figure above. It was a man cloaked in a black robe with chain armor underneath, standing in the void. His face was grim, eyes like a snake, looking down at the blood prison great saint and Feng Xian with furrowed brows. Blood prison great saint was the first to ask, is there something you need? Although the opponent's aura was powerful, he wasn't fazed at all. At worst, they would fight. It had been many years since he last battled. Feng Xian glanced at Blood Prison Great Saint, suddenly feeling this sworn brother was more belligerent than he imagined, because he heard the eagerness in the Blood Prison Great Saint's tone. Although Feng Xian was considered a genius, he didn't like to fight. To him, immortal cultivation didn't necessarily require combat. Fighting was the ultimate last resort. The Celestial Court is arresting beings who are stepping onto the Emperor Road. Although you don't have the destiny of the Taoist Emperor, the destiny on you too is very special, and you might be targeted by the Celestial Court. Leave the path of the Great Tao soon. The black-robed man looked down at the Blood Prison Great Saint and Feng Xian, then turned and left, shattering the void in the blink of an eye and disappearing without a trace. The Celestial Court? Blood Prison Great Saint frowned. He had heard this name before but didn't know much about it. Only that the legendary immortal gods came from the Celestial Court, which also represented the heavenly Tao. Feng Xian knew more about the Celestial Court, and his expression turned ugly. He whispered, "Better to believe it exists than not. We should find a place to hide, at least stay away from the main plane of the path of the Great Tao." Blood Prison Great Saint glared and said, "So what if it's the Celestial Court? This is the path of the Great Tao. I've never heard of a force that could dominate it single-handedly. If they left, how would he carry out the tasks his master assigned?" Feng Xian wanted to continue persuading when suddenly, a vast oppression descended, enveloping them both, causing their expressions to change. They instinctively turned to look. From the direction where the black-robed man had appeared, a golden light unfolded rapidly toward them, accompanied by deafening footsteps, as if tens of thousands were marching together. The Blood Prison Great Saint immediately took out his Tao treasure, the heaven-breaking Blood Prison saber. With the Tao treasure out, the suppressive force he encountered immediately weakened. He grabbed the adjacent Feng Xian, who was immobilized by the oppressive force, and turned to flee. "Humph! Where do you think you're going?" The celestial calming god's cold snort came from behind. Before Blood Prison Great Saint could turn his head, he suddenly felt an irresistible pull. Even the Tao treasure couldn't completely resist this suction force. Blood Prison Great Saint was greatly horrified and instinctively turned his head, seeing the endless darkness like a giant abyssal mouth engulfing everything, about to swallow him and Feng Xian. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 688. Unfathomable Ancestor Within the Wuxia Dojo. At dusk, Guan was carving a wooden figure in the courtyard. Xinzhen was cultivating in front of the artifact refining cauldron, and Zizai was pondering deeply atop the courtyard wall, as the twilight glow cast an aura of tranquility and harmony over the entire courtyard. Suddenly, Guan slightly raised his eyebrows. He sensed that Blood Prison Great Saint and Feng Xian had been captured, and the threads of destiny suddenly became blurred. Celestial Court. Only the Celestial Court could make destiny appear this obscure. Fortunately, the Blood Prison Great Saint and Feng Xian carried the destiny of the primordial Tao Emperor, allowing him to track their whereabouts. Guan began tracing their trail through the destiny of the primordial Tao Emperor, and saw the plight of Blood Prison Great Saint and Feng Xian. Guan suddenly thought of the Divine Court within the Taiwei Great World. The Divine Court was also aiding the immortal gods in capturing creatures, tossing them into a furnace, and now the same fate befell Blood Prison Great Saint and Feng Xian. Could it be that these immortal gods were preparing for the Celestial Emperor's struggle? Guan stood up, stretched lazily. He looked at Zizai and suddenly had an idea. No matter what, Zizai, being the eldest disciple among the third-generation disciples of Wuxia, must eventually possess the ability and insight to stand on his own. Currently, Zizai severely lacks insight, even considering the free immortal realm as the highest stage of immortal cultivation. "Zizai, I am planning to go out and have a look. There might be battles involved. Would you like to come and see?" Guan spoke, and as soon as he said this, Zizai turned his head towards him with an expression of interest. Not only him, but even Xinzhen looked at Guan, eyes full of curiosity. "Ancestor, I'm afraid I will drag you down." Zizai wanted to go, but recalling his previous experiences of external training made him hesitant. Guan smiled and said, "No worries, you won't need to act. Such an opportunity is rare. Think about it carefully." Hearing this, Zizai fell silent, while Shenzhen spoke. "Your ancestor wants to broaden your horizons. You are the first third-generation disciple of Wuxia, and you will surely have many junior brothers and sisters in the future. Do you think you are qualified to be the eldest disciple in your current state?" Her words were not pleasant, tinged with a shade of mockery, but they did not anger Zizai. Zizai took a deep breath, finding reason in Shenzhen's words. He gave Shenzhen a grateful look, then said to Guan, "Ancestor, I am willing to go with you." Guan immediately waved his sleeve, and Zizai felt a strong wind rush towards him, instinctively closing his eyes. Then Zizai could not open his eyes, only feeling himself falling, unable to extend his divine sense, which instinctively made him feel tense. After a while, Zizai felt his feet touch the ground, and instinctively opened his eyes to see Guan's back. Seeing his ancestor before him, he breathed a sigh of relief. Without speaking, he raised his head to observe the surroundings. He found himself in a dim world, the celestial vault pitch black like a starless night sky. The barren earth and heaps of scorched soil emanated fire sparks and smoldering smoke, gradually making him feel the heat. What is this place? Confusion filled Zizai's heart, and he could only look towards his ancestor. Guan said, "We are inside a great cauldron, where thousands of beings beyond the 9 heavens of the immortal path are suffering." Beyond the 9 heavens of the immortal path? Thousands. Zizai's eyes widened. His mouth dropped open in shock, his worldview experiencing a strong impact. In his understanding, the 9th heaven of the immortal path was the highest realm, and he could not envision how powerful those beyond it could be. Yet thousands of such powerful beings were subdued here. Above the free immortal realm is the Dao fruit realm, segmented into Daoist Zongzizai immortal, profound Yuan free immortal, and heaven encompassing free immortal. Beyond that lies the golden immortal Dao fruit, segmented into innate golden immortal, heaven balancing golden immortal, and Taiqing golden immortal. Guan gazed into the distance, softly introducing, leaving Zizai even more astounded. There are so many realms above the free immortal? CTH Novel Fire. Net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. What realm was the ancestor in? His intuition told him the ancestor might very well be a Taiqing golden immortal. How else could he know so much? Zizai nervously asked, "Ancestor, who is the enemy and where are they?" Guan did not hide it. "The owner of this cauldron is an immortal god from the celestial court. We came here because my steed was captured here." "Is it Uncle Master Blood Prison?" Zizai's eyes lit up as he asked. Though the Blood Prison Great Saint was a steed, he was regarded as a disciple within Wuxia, and Zizai had heard his name since childhood. Among the disciples of Wuxia, Blood Prison Great Saint was the second only to his master, with immense capability. "Yes, it is him," Guan answered, having already sensed the presence of Blood Prison Great Saint and Feng Xian within the cauldron. They were trying to escape the cauldron, but no matter how they exerted their divine skills, they could not break free. The other trapped individuals within the cauldron had long given up hope, opting only to meditate to resist the cauldron's flames as best as they could. "Are we going to rescue him now?" Zizai asked excitedly. He was excited for 2 reasons: meeting the Blood Prison Great Saint and encountering the immortal gods and realms beyond the free immortal. He felt a thrill reminiscent of his early days of training away from the 9-spirit continent. No rush. Guan turned to walk, and Zizai quickly followed. He glanced around, feeling very nervous, unsure of where the enemy lay. This world is so vast. Is it really a cauldron? Zizai was secretly astonished, unable to imagine the strength and features of the celestial court immortal god, who wielded such a great cauldron. As they advanced, Zizai saw bones upon bones, human remains and demon remains shocking to the eye, the stances of some of the skeletons making his scalp tingle. He could imagine how desperate they must have been while alive. "Ancestor, how did you bring me in?" Zizai refocused his gaze on Guan, cautiously asking. Invading even the treasure of an immortal god seemed effortless. And Zizai truly sensed his ancestors' profound abilities, heightening his anticipation for the impending battle. Just stepped in. Guan answered casually. This offhand remark further increased in Zizai's admiration for him. Ancestor, will you fight the immortal gods? In this place, it might be worth testing their edge. What is this place? Where is this great cauldron located? Is it still within our world? This is the path of the great Tao, incredibly far from the celestial spirit great world, so distant that with your current cultivation level, you will never be able to come here in your lifetime. Guan's answer left Zizai wide-eyed again, memorizing the name of this place, determined to journey here if possible in the future. Ancestor, if a battle does start, will you use the myriad supreme palm? And Zizai blinked, expectantly asking. Guan gently nodded. He did not look back, but this gesture was enough to make Zizai feel thrilled. Having cultivated the myriad supreme palm for so many years, he had not truly witnessed the power of this secret skill. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 689. Demon God's physical body under the dark celestial vault. The blood prison Great Saint landing beside Feng Xian, both of their expressions grim. No, we can't escape at all. The blood prison Great Saint gritted his teeth, clenching his fists, his eyes filled with rage. Having cultivated on the path of the great Tao for so many years, to be effortlessly trapped in this realm made him feel deeply humiliated. Don't act rashly. Let's meditate and observe this realm first. Feng Xian pulled the blood prison Great Saint to sit down, cautiously watching their surroundings. The floating scorched smoke and sparks reminded him of a terrible event that had occurred here, and it was likely to happen again. The blood prison Great Saint took a deep breath, struggling to calm his emotions. He then dispersed his divine sense, trying to investigate the situation here. He quickly saw figures of other captives, but could not see the figures of Guan or Zizai. So many people were caught, and many have a higher cultivation level than us. Feng Xian murmured, his tone full of unease. Xuanji Emperor. He's also here, reportedly one of the best chances of becoming a Daoist emperor among the current prodigies. Feng Xian's face changed dramatically. After saying this, his face looked ashen. The blood prison Great Saint felt increasingly anxious. Why had the immortal gods captured so many people? Meanwhile, Zizai followed Guan all the way. He noticed that although his pace hadn't accelerated, the surrounding environment shifted significantly. This was a very peculiar experience. Although he advanced quickly, it was hard to notice unless he observed carefully. It must be the ancestors' doing. Zizai looked at Guan with growing admiration. As a child, he didn't understand why his master always obeyed the ancestor without question, and wouldn't ask a single question regarding his commands, nor why other disciples feared the ancestor so much. Though seemingly carefree, the ancestor actually possessed great divine power capable of extraordinary feats, but he usually didn't show off. Zizai silently vowed that he too wanted to become a person like the ancestor. True strength should be displayed at critical moments, not flaunted in daily life. We've arrived. Guan's voice suddenly rang, pulling Zizai's thoughts back to reality. In that instant, he had the illusion that heaven and earth trembled. His gaze was drawn forward. His eyes slowly widened, pupils filled with astonishment. Following his gaze, there was a giant egg standing on the ground ahead, as massive as a mountain, towering 1,000 zhang high. The surface of the giant egg was like flesh and skin with veins, glowing red inside, faintly revealing a giant curled up within. Guan looked up at the giant egg and used lifespan detection, but received no feedback. So, it's not for alchemy but for forging a body. Without a soul. Could it be for possession? Guan speculated secretly, sensing that the flesh inside the giant egg was already no less than the heaven-encompassing free immortal realm. This body lacked celestial Tao destiny, yet exuded a terrifying aura, one that the heaven-encompassing free immortal should not have. Guan carefully deduced, finding this aura to be linked to some great Tao, and that this body had countless ties to the 3,000 great Tao. Delving deeper into his deductions, he saw a darkness, a cosmic plane beyond the 3,000 great worlds, oppressively bleak, with nothing visible. Though not much useful information was gained, he could confirm that the purpose of the great cauldron capturing so many living beings was to refine their flesh and merge it into this body. Ancestor, what is that? And Zizai couldn't help but ask. Just looking at the body within the giant egg made him shudder, and gave birth to a strong urge to flee. Perhaps it's a demon god. Guan answered, his gaze fixed on the giant egg ahead. And Zizai wanted to ask more questions when suddenly the ground trembled, and frightening earth fire erupted. He instinctively flew upward, his eyes glancing at the ground. Guan still stood in place, the blazing flames around him causing no harm, his robe untouched by the fire, as if the surrounding inferno were an illusion. The speed of the earth fire's ascent was so fast that Zizai had to keep flying upwards. In the distance, silhouettes of other living beings also rose, with strong auras bursting from different directions. And Zizai could sense anxiety in those auras. Ancestor. And Zizai looked at Guan, calling softly, terror of the flames driving him to seek reliance on Guan. Guan suddenly waved his sleeve, taking the giant egg into his sleeve. He then took a step, a fierce wind erupting from around him, spreading instantly, dispersing the flames along the way. In the distance, the blood prison great saint and Feng Xian still sat on the ground, using their mana to resist the surrounding blazing flames. Feng Xian frowned and was about to speak when a strong wind came from the horizon, blowing away the sea of fire around them, making them turn their heads to look. What's going on? The blood prison great saint muttered, tensing up, his right hand gripping the heaven-breaking blood prison saber beside him. Feng Xian didn't answer the blood prison great saint. He was probing the situation in that direction with his divine sense. Unfortunately, unable to see Guan, he couldn't find the source. Above the Qi Sea of the Great Tao, golden light extended infinitely. Hundreds of thousands of heavenly soldiers walked upon it, swaying unstoppably. At the front, the celestial calming god held a saber in one hand and a black cauldron in the other. In his grasp, the black cauldron appeared tiny, its surface engraved with fierce beast images, lifelike and eerie to the point of fear. Suddenly, S.E. the novel, F.I.R. NT website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. The celestial calming god stopped, frowning as he glanced at the black cauldron in his hand. When he stopped, the hundreds of thousands of heavenly soldiers halted with him. Zhang Buku, standing amidst the crowd, gazed at the stance of the celestial calming god, curiously asking, "What's happening?" Beside him, Suyu squinted and answered, "The soul refining cauldron seems to have a problem." Soul refining cauldron? Zhang Buku was even more curious. He felt a sense of awe and dread towards the soul refining cauldron, recalling scenes of it suppressing numerous prodigies. Even he, as a celestial god, felt intimidated. This cauldron was so ominous, full of evil. Boom! A pillar of fire suddenly rose in front of the celestial calming god, soaring into the sky, grandly towering, making even the mighty celestial calming god appear small before it. Within the fire pillar, the massive soul refining cauldron slowly rose, becoming countless times larger than before. Who dares meddle with an immortal artifact? The celestial calming god's voice echoed, solemnly oppressive, like thunder echoing endlessly. All the heavenly soldiers were on guard, ready to form a formation at any moment. The soul refining cauldron halted, suspended in the void, the surrounding fire pillar dissipating soon, quickly restoring calmness. The heavenly soldiers looked around, finding no enemy figures, forcing them to turn their gaze to the soul refining cauldron. The top cover of the soul refining cauldron did not tremble, standing as firm as Mount Tai, giving a sense of unshakable gravity. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 690. Flip of the hand. As hundreds of thousands of heavenly soldiers fixed their gaze on the lid of the soul refining cauldron. Inside the cauldron, the endless sea of fire had already dissipated. One by one, figures soared into the air, hovering, and looked around, eager to grasp the situation. Who extinguished the cauldron fire? Some of these captives had already experienced the burning flames and knew the terror it wrought. That gust of wind just now was definitely no coincidence. There is a mysterious figure extinguishing the fire. And Zizai looked at Guan, his eyes filled with anticipation. What kind of epic battle will unfold next? Under Zizai's watchful eyes, Guan turned, facing a direction, and slowly raised his right hand. It has begun. And Zizai felt a surge of excitement, his eyes filled with expectation. As Guan lifted his palm, a terrifying aura erupted. This time, he deliberately weakened the barriers of cause and effect and aura, allowing all creatures within the cauldron to see him, but unable to see him clearly. The Blood Prison Great Saint and Feng Xian also turned their heads, their gazes locked on Guan. They could only see a blurry figure, unable to discern Guan's true appearance. The Blood Prison Great Saint's expression was invigorated, his breathing becoming rapid. Though unclear, he instantly guessed it was Guan. Back then, when Guan stood against the battle court, his figure was just as unseeable, but his presence was felt. He just got caught, and his master has arrived. Who is that daring to? Feng Xian furrowed his brow and muttered to himself. Suddenly, as if realizing something, his eyes widened and shifted to the excited, trembling Blood Prison Great Saint beside him, causing his own heart to quiver. That existence has indeed come. On another side of the world within the cauldron, dozens of creatures hovered in the air, headed by a man clad in dark red battle armor. His figure was robust, long hair coiled beneath the majestic headpiece of a divine beast, with a stern face exuding immense pressure. This was the Xuanji Emperor, whose cultivation had reached the heaven-encompassing free immortal realm. He was the existence with the greatest hope of becoming a Taoist emperor on the current path of the Great Tao. The Xuanji Emperor also couldn't see Guan's true self, but this person gave him the same feeling as his clan's ancestor, profound and unfathomable. He had an intuition that this person might lead them out. Under the watchful eyes of thousands of prodigies and great cultivators, Guan gently pushed forward with his right palm. The action seemed casual, like picking flowers in grass. But as Guan's arm straightened, a terrifying force suddenly erupted, shattering the darkness of the celestial vault in front of him. A whirlwind mixed with burnt smoke roared forth, like a pack of dragons vying to be the first to rush out, creating a grand spectacle. Thousands of captives caught in the whirlwind were all stunned by this palm of Guan. They could feel the terrifying, irresistible force. Ever since they fell into this realm, they had tried to break out, all in vain. Their strongest divine skills didn't create the slightest damage. Cloaks flapping and hair swirling, all captives gazed at the broken hole in the horizon where inside shone a dazzling white light, resembling an entrance to a new world. Above the Qi Sea along the Great Tao, hundreds of thousands of heavenly soldiers watched as a huge hole was blasted through the soul-refining cauldron. The oppressive heat wave surged out, unstoppable, and the majority of heavenly soldiers showed a look of disbelief. Such an immortal artifact was actually pierced through? And from the inside, the celestial calming god's face was equally grim as he leapt into the air, arriving at the hole in the soul-refining cauldron, using his physical body to withstand the wind and waves. He raised his mighty sword high, while hundreds of thousands of heavenly soldiers began to form ranks. Zhang Buku and Suyu both directed their mana while looking at the soul-refining cauldron. Their gaze concentrated on that hole, curious about what kind of powerful being had broken through the cauldron. They instinctively thought of the Xuanji Emperor, whose performance had impressed them when the celestial calming god captured him. Under the scrutinizing eyes of all the heavenly soldiers, the blinding light inside the hole of the soul-refining cauldron continued to shine as a figure slowly emerged, seeming like a speck of dust compared to the gaping hole, but exerting extreme pressure on the heavenly soldiers. Guan slowly walked out of the white light, followed by Zizai. Neither the celestial calming god nor the hundreds of thousands of heavenly soldiers could see their true forms, only perceiving two vague silhouettes, which made the celestial calming god even more wary of Guan. "Who are you?" The celestial calming god questioned sternly. He was sure he had never captured these two before, meaning they had sneaked into the soul-refining cauldron without a trace. Their cultivation level was likely above his. This is the path of the Great Tao, and any being daring to oppose the celestial court might intend to kill them. especially since they hid their true forms. It was clear they harbored ill intent. He could die and be resurrected through the celestial court's destiny, but his hundreds of thousands of heavenly soldiers couldn't, since they hadn't truly been inducted into the immortal class. After putting in so much time and effort, he didn't want his soldiers to fall here. Guan did not respond to the celestial calming god. His gaze swept over the hundreds of thousands of heavenly soldiers and spotted Zhang Buku. He looked at Suyu beside Zhang Buku. He had previously calculated that a Daoyuo being backed Suyu. Now looking at Suyu up close, he could see more of the cause and effect. The Daoyuo existence behind Suyu had intricate ties with the celestial court, but wasn't completely shrouded by its destiny. Could it be he wants to break away from the celestial court? As Guan pondered, hundreds of thousands of heavenly soldiers flew upwards, encircling the soul-refining cauldron, quickly forming ranks, like a giant golden bell's silhouette enveloping the void. Within the silhouette, countless golden dragons and fire phoenixes coiled, exuding immense pressure, with dragon roars and phoenix calls resonating endlessly. From behind Guan, figures flew out of the white light, all the captives emerging. After the blood prison great saint flew out, he gazed at Guan from afar with an excited look, but he restrained the urge to acknowledge him. The master had not revealed his true form, so he couldn't spoil things. He began to anticipate how his master would confront the heavenly court immortals. The Xuanji emperor, Fengxian, and other captives saw the celestial court's formation complete and dared not act rashly. All their attention focused on Guan, pinning their hopes on this mysterious great power. Sir the Novel Fire. Net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. The celestial calming god lifted his sword, pointing it at Guan, as his Dharma aspect rose, radiating majesty like an ancient war god standing up, dwarfing even the soul-refining cauldron. If you refuse to speak, you're an enemy. The celestial calming god shouted solemnly, thoughts rushing through his mind, but with so many enemies over the long years, he couldn't promptly identify who it was. Yet he didn't waste time in idle chatter. During the questioning, he was already mobilizing the celestial army's destiny of the celestial court, focusing it on himself. He was already at the cultivation level of a heaven-balancing golden immortal, and his momentum was escalating crazily. Guan saw through the celestial calming god's little tricks, but didn't mind. And Zizai looked at the figure of the celestial calming god, and the grand formation of hundreds of thousands of heavenly soldiers. This was the first time he had encountered such an imposing scene in all his years. Watch closely, this is the first strike of the myriad supreme palm. Guan's voice suddenly resonated in Zizai's ears, causing his eyes to widen. And Zizai fixed his gaze on Guan, watching him raise his right hand once more. This time, Guan didn't push forward but instead flipped his right hand upwards and then pressed it downwards. Not just Zizai, almost everyone had their eyes glued to Guan. Seeing his movement, no one dared breathe. As Guan's palm pressed downward, an immense, boundless pressure descended from the sky, enveloping everyone, shocking them as they looked up. Hundreds of thousands of heavenly soldiers raised their heads uniformly. The scene utterly spectacular. They too widened their eyes in disbelief. The always composed and profound Suyu's expression also drastically changed, exclaiming in shock, "How can this be? If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report, so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 691. Suyu's voice was drowned out by the roar within the void, and Zhang Buku beside him also widened his eyes, with specks of golden light appearing rapidly in his eyes, quickly connecting into a continuum. Hundreds of thousands of heavenly soldiers looked up, all with expressions of utter astonishment. Celestial calming god looked up, and was similarly shocked. He immediately roared in anger, raised his sword, and slashed upwards. His mana, nearly at the limit of the heaven-balancing golden immortal realm, suddenly erupted, soaring skyward. The golden bell phantom formed by hundreds of thousands of heavenly soldiers trembled violently, and those golden dragons and fire phoenixes, as if encountering a natural enemy, ceased altogether, roaring towards the sky. The thousands of other trapped people behind Guan also looked up, all staring in stupefaction, the golden light illuminating their shocked expressions. Golden ethereal palms of varying sizes descended from the sky, endless and inexhaustible, all shining with piercing golden light, occupying the entire sky above the void, as if another plane was descending, full of oppression. No matter which direction one looked, there were massive golden palm silhouettes as large as mountains, some even larger than heaven and earth, with an unimaginable oppressive force that made it impossible for them to escape the range of the celestial army's formation. Even the Xuanji Emperor of the heaven-encompassing free immortals could not count how many golden ethereal palms there were. In the face of such divine skills, the heavenly court immortals were like mere mortals, insignificant and fragile. And Zizai opened his mouth wide, staring blankly at the relentless descent of the golden ethereal palms, his mind blank as he gazed at the spectacle. Time seemed to slow down, and everyone except the celestial calming god had no time to react. The celestial calming god wielded his sword to cut, and in the process of ascending, the vast mana transformed into a crimson Qilin, surrounded by heavenly thunder. It was even larger than the soul-refining cauldron, but under the endless palm silhouettes of the god-calming realm, it was like a mosquito caught in a storm, ready to be overwhelmed at any moment. The descent of the god-calming realm was extremely fast, from appearance to arrival in less than half a heartbeat. Countless golden ethereal palms smashed onto the golden bell phantom, and the dazzling golden light made the entire void lose its color. Zhang Buku looked up with wide eyes. He instinctively wanted to use his divine skills, but his actions weren't quick enough, and ultimately, his entire body was engulfed by the golden light. Boom. 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 As the cosmic void lost its color, deafening roaring sounds erupted continuously, and Zizai also closed his eyes, unable to see, and the incoming sounds made him feel as if the entire Dao universe was shaking, his chi blood freezing, causing extreme discomfort. Standing behind Guan, he felt this way, let alone the others. Blood Prison Great Saint felt both uncomfortable and excited. Even though he couldn't see, the vast spectacle of the god-calming realm echoed in his mind. Such divine skills, he wanted to learn them too. Once he returned, he would pester his master to teach him this divine skill. Xuanji Emperor also found himself unable to perform magic, but he sensed a special fate. A special fate not only due to pure and powerful cultivation, but also a special fate supporting it. This fate was similar to the Taoist emperors, comparable to the Great Tao, yet independent of the Great Tao. This astonished the Xuanji Emperor greatly. Is there a kind of Great Tao destiny on the path of the Great Tao stronger than the Taoist Emperor? He had no time to ponder more, quickly realizing his consciousness was being dragged into slumber. And Zizai had a dream, dreaming of ancestors slaughtering indiscriminately among the heavenly soldiers and generals, no immortal or god able to withstand a single blow, a completely one-sided massacre. Suddenly, Ancestor approached him, frightening him into abruptly waking up, opening his eyes wide and sitting up, gasping for air. The morning sunlight pierced through the mountains and rivers of the earth, shining on him, giving him a feeling as if a lifetime had passed. He instinctively turned his head and found himself in Ancestor's courtyard. Xinjun and an Exian were sitting in front of the artifact refining cauldron, conversing in low voices, with no sign of anyone else. He couldn't help but ask, "Master, Uncle Shen, where's the ancestor?" "Your ancestor went out to play. Estimated to be back by evening." An Exian replied calmly. It was Xinjun who turned his head to look at him, curious. "How was it? Did you witness your ancestor's hand?" And Zizai took a deep breath, nodded heavily, recalling the memories in his mind. He couldn't help but clench his fists, his eyes shining. He replied, "Ancestor used the divine skills he taught me, so strong, there must be at least 100,000 heavenly court immortals. Not one could withstand a single palm from him." An Exian also became interested, turning to listen to him describe the previous battle. At the same time, Guan was staying in the mountain god temple of Taitsong continent. After picking the ripe medicinal herbs, he came into the courtyard, then silently activated the lifespan barrier, taking out the demon god body he had taken from the soul refining cauldron, still within an egg. He did not kill the celestial calming god and the hundreds of thousands of heavenly soldiers. The celestial calming god couldn't be killed, and those heavenly soldiers were innocent, simply following orders. If they were all killed, the karma involved would cover the 3,000 great worlds and various mysterious universes, let alone Zhongbuku, who was also among them. Of course, aside from intimidating the celestial calming god, this battle also showcased the power of the primordial Tao Emperor to those thousands of trapped people and hundreds of thousands of heavenly soldiers. These trapped people and heavenly soldiers were all great powers and gifted prodigies. They would certainly perceive the fate of the primordial Tao Emperor, and they could spread the primordial Tao Emperor across their respective universes. At this moment, Guan was more concerned with the demon god body that the celestial calming god had refined. He observed carefully and found that this demon god body had a high tolerance for the 3,000 great Taos, meaning it could cultivate various great Taos with ease. For whom was the celestial calming god preparing this body? This body had no heavenly court destiny, so Guan realized that there were hundreds of such bodies within the 3,000 great worlds, and one was hidden within the divine court of Taiwei Great World. S.E. The Novel Fire. Any *T website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. So many demon god bodies, and they are all being refined by immortals and gods, must be related to the struggle with the celestial emperor. Do they need so many demon gods to overthrow the current celestial emperor's rule? Guan was very curious about how strong the celestial emperor really was today. What was his concept of the heavenly Tao? Perhaps the disregard of the immortal gods for all living beings is related to the battle for the celestial emperor. Guan looked at the demon god body, silently thinking. Profound mysterious Shenren sat beside him, curiously looking at the giant egg in front of Guan. Even though the egg had shrunk a lot, the figure curled up inside still appeared large. Staring at the figure inside the giant egg, profound mysterious Shenren felt very uneasy, feeling that this body was terrifying, making him afraid to disturb Guan. For a long time, Guan glanced at profound mysterious Shenren and smiled. I shall grant this body to you, to aid in your possession. Do you agree? Upon hearing this, profound mysterious Shenren's face changed greatly, not immediately agreeing or refusing, but cautiously asked, what is the origin of this body? This body was refined by the immortal gods, true immortal gods. If you possess it, you will have talent surpassing all creation, but you will also bear unforeseen karma, which might drag you into immense trouble in the future. Guan explained, making profound mysterious Shenren even more nervous. True immortal gods? The reason profound mysterious Shenren follows Guan is because he devoutly believes in immortal gods. Now hearing of true immortal gods from Guan, his heartbeat quickened. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 692. The Supreme Celestial Emperor. How do you wish me to choose? After much thought, profound mysterious Shenren decided to inquire about Gu An's attitude. He owed his current achievements entirely to Gu An's support, and he believed Guan would not harm him. Even if he was merely a pawn for Guan, he would willingly accept it. Guan replied, naturally, I hope you can accept it, and perhaps in the future, you could use this body to enter the immortal class. Profound mysterious Shenren narrowed his eyes and asked, do you want me to infiltrate the celestial court? So clever. Guan spoke earnestly. Immortal gods exist, but they disregard all living beings. Some even commit evil deeds in the human world. I think there might be issues within the celestial court that creates immortal gods. The reason he chose to give the demon god body to profound mysterious Shenren was twofold. To genuinely help him change his fate, and because profound mysterious Shenren yearned for immortal gods, thus he could send him to the celestial court as a spy. The destiny of the celestial court is complex and cannot be predicted, but if a spy is planted, they can still investigate the internal situation of the celestial court. After hearing this, profound mysterious Shenren thought it made sense. The current immortal gods were indeed strange. They were not seen saving the world. Instead, Many catastrophes arose because of them. Then I am willing to possess this body. Thank you for your grace. Sar the novel, Fr. NT website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Profound mysterious Shinran immediately knelt down and kowtowed to Guan. If it weren't for Guan's care, he wouldn't have lived this long. Even though he was already hundreds of thousands of years old, his path of cultivation was still hopeful, all thanks to Guan. Moreover, he believed Guan was greatly virtuous. Without Guan, the world he resided in would have been destroyed several times already. No matter the underlying reasons, born in the celestial spirit great world, he should take its side. Whoever protected it was the true immortal God in his heart. Guan, looking at profound mysterious Shinran kneeling in front of him, couldn't help but think back to 56,000 years ago, when profound mysterious Shinran had also knelt to him like this. He wondered whether this arrangement was a blessing or a curse for profound mysterious Shinran. Guan did not hesitate. He had already explained the pros and cons and his intentions to profound mysterious Shinran, which was also what the latter sought. He believed that profound mysterious Shinran was not compelled by his power. Profound mysterious Shinran surely knew that even if he refused Guan, Guan would not trouble him. Then let's begin. On a desolate meteor on the path of the great Tao, Zhang Buku opened his eyes, quickly stood up and looked around. He found himself surrounded by heavenly soldiers. Suyu stood by his side, frowning as he looked into the distance. Zhang Buku couldn't help but ask, "Did that person leave?" Suyu nodded and said, "The other party didn't harm us. They probably left to save someone." Following his gaze at the horizon, the celestial calming god was meditating on a cliff, with his back to hundreds of thousands of heavenly soldiers. "What's wrong with him?" Zhang Buku whispered, also staring at the celestial calming god. Suyu replied, "He might be transmitting information." He took a deep breath, turned to Zhang Buku, and asked, "Did you feel anything during the previous great battle?" Hearing this, Zhang Buku began to recall carefully, thinking of the terrifying scene that seemed to suppress the world, and he still felt fear. After a while, Zhang Buku hesitantly said, "That person had a kind of destiny similar to the Taoist emperor, but different from it." The great Tao destiny was no secret to him. He currently had access only to the celestial Tao destiny and Taoist emperor. Whether becoming a celestial Tao immortal god or a Taoist emperor, one would possess unparalleled divine power in the same realm. Now there was a new type. Guan's great Tao destiny made him feel an extremely fierce aura that directly confronted the soul and Tao heart. Indeed, it's another kind of great Tao destiny. "The heavens are about to change," Suyu said softly, his words full of complexity. Zhang Buku asked in confusion, "Change?" A long time ago, when the Taoist emperor was born, it once triggered a catastrophe that swept through the 3,000 great worlds and all the heavens, even affecting the celestial court. Although the celestial court disdained the Taoist emperor, once there were many Taoist emperors, they attempted to overthrow the celestial court's rule. If this great Tao destiny also flourishes, it will inevitably challenge the divine might of the celestial court. Suyu's voice was filled with emotion. "Do you mean the celestial court will hunt down this kind of destiny?" "No, the celestial court is arrogant. They disdain all existence, especially the supreme celestial emperor. He can allow all forces to grow. The conflicts between the celestial court and all the heavens are basically about offending a certain immortal god, rather than the will of the entire celestial court." Mentioning the celestial emperor, Suyu's eyes shone with a light Zhang Buku had never seen before. Zhang Buku could feel Suyu's immense reverence for the celestial emperor, sparking unlimited curiosity about him. What kind of being is the celestial emperor? Meanwhile, in another plane on the path of the great Tao, Blood Prison Great Saint and Fang Xian were blocked by a group of people. "Do you also wish to pursue the primordial Tao emperor?" Blood Prison Great Saint asked with a raised eyebrow. The primordial Tao emperor had already taken root and flourished on the path of the great Tao. Blood Prison Great Saint didn't think this was a secret, nor did he know that the primordial Tao emperor was something Guan had pioneered. After the previous great battle, he assumed that Guan was also the primordial Tao emperor. It made sense. If Guan wasn't the primordial Tao Emperor, why would he let them cultivate as the primordial Tao Emperor? As for Guan sending him to gather information, he understood it. Even though he had begun reincarnation projection, his understanding of the primordial Tao Emperor was still insufficient. Not to mention the primordial Tao Emperor, those Taoist emperors who achieved their own great Tao destiny probably didn't know enough about it. Xuanji Emperor nodded and said, "Indeed, that fiercely powerful great Tao destiny suits me more." Having witnessed Guan's power, he was enthralled by such a powerful and domineering aura. Even though he was already close to becoming a Taoist emperor, he decided resolutely to abandon it. In his eyes, the Taoist emperor was just a form of power, not his lifelong pursuit. Now, with the emergence of a stronger and more alluring power, how could he hesitate? The people following Xuanji Emperor had similar thoughts. They were very curious about the primordial Tao Emperor. To tread the primordial Emperor road, you must find the primordial crystal. It will guide you into the path. Blood Prison Great Saint began introducing the primordial crystal. A proud talent behind Xuanji Emperor had a slight change in expression because he had encountered a primordial crystal before, but hadn't paid much attention to it, thus secretly blaming himself for being blind. After chatting for a while, Xuanji Emperor finally thanked them and left. Blood Prison Great Saint and Feng Xian both received heavenly materials and earthly treasures from him, which made them feel favorable toward him. This person was different from other proud talents on the Emperor Road. He was not that arrogant and acted considerately. Watching them leave, Feng Xian smiled and sighed. "My path is not lonely. I truly look forward to the day when the primordial Tao Emperor overshadows the Taoist Emperor." Blood Prison Great Saint laughed. "That day will surely come. The Taoist Emperor's path of proving the Tao, like raising venomous creatures, goes against the natural Taoist technique, and will ultimately be eliminated. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 693. 50,000 years in the human world. Attacking the celestial calming god's celestial army didn't bring any trouble to Guan. With his help, profound mysterious Shinran successfully possessed the demon god body, but needed time to adapt. Life returned to tranquility once again. Having witnessed the might that could calm the world like a god, and Zizai became thoroughly exhilarated and focused all his efforts on cultivation, more diligently than anyone else. Time flies like a fleeting horse, never to return. 500,000 years passed in the blink of an eye. The human world welcomed an unprecedented golden age, with the 100 sects establishing branches beyond the heavens, exploring the void and the silent extinction domain. The number of free immortals doubled, and most free immortals were born after the reshaping of heaven and earth, all possessing excellent talents. In the Taoist field of the beginningless, the highest cultivation level among the second-generation disciples reached the Zizai immortal realm, able to hold their own, while the lowest were divine thought true immortals. For more third-generation disciples had joined, ranked by seniority. They were Lu Zidao, the disciple of celestial demon child; Zhou Yu, the disciple of Jiangshi; Jiangwan, the second disciple of an Xian; and Shangguan Xiener, the disciple of celestial Cyan. The weakest, Shangguan Xiener, had also reached the heaven and earth flying immortal realm. The eldest of the third-generation disciples, and Zizai, had reached the cultivation level of Tao Void Profound Immortal. All these third-generation disciples chose to remain at the Taoist field of the beginningless to cultivate, though they did not receive personal instruction from Guan. On this day at noon, Guan lay resting under a tree, checking his attribute panel. Name: Guan Sir the Novelier. NET website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Lifespan 1067, 509/76, 680, 956, 221, 303. Physique: primordial Tao creation body. Cultivation level: perfect Taoist Great Luo immortal realm. He was already an ancient being over 1,000,000 years old, with a lifespan reaching 76 trillion years. Every time he saw his age, Guan would sigh with emotion. Truly, time spares no one. Looking back, his greatest sense of achievement was not his own cultivation level, but that the people he cared about were all living well. Liya, martial resolution, and Yang Jian were all free immortals. Though not the top cultivations in the human world, they were considered first-rate and held considerable influence wherever they went. Even the 100 sects in the human world treated them well. Other old friends like Jiang Qiong, Li Xiandao, and Profound Celestial Intent were all doing well. Even those like Lu Lingjun, Gu Yuzuolin, and Yu Yingying, with whom he had lost contact, had received his secret assistance and were living their own brilliant lives. Some people, though drifting further apart, did not leave Guan feeling regretful. He continued to keep an eye on them, considering it a small pleasure in his otherwise calm life. "Ancestor, look at the book I wrote." A melodious female voice came from the side. A woman, dressed in a white skirt and as beautiful as a celestial being, floated over like a startling swan, quickly landing beside him. It was Shangguan Xiener, the disciple of Celestial Cyan. She was the third-generation disciple closest to Guan, not because she was the only female disciple, but because she shared the same hobby as Guan. Her interest was inspired by Shen Zhen. Whenever Shangguan Xiener came to find Guan, he would internally sigh. That wretched Shen Zhen. What has he turned his obedient disciple granddaughter into? And Celestial Cyan, who lost interest in a disciple in under 1,000 years and completely ignored it. Shangguan Xiener crouched down, handing the book in her hands to Guan, her delicate face full of anticipation. Guan glanced at an Xian meditating not far away, then tucked Shangguan Xiener's book into his arms, gave a slight cough and said, "I'll read it later. You can leave now. Don't disturb your senior brother's cultivation." Shangguan Xiener turned her head to look at an Xian. She held a deep reverence for an Xian. In the entire Taoist field of the beginningless, she feared an Xian the most. Seeing an Xian still meditating, Shangguan Xiener turned back, looked at Guan and said mysteriously, "Ancestor, Qiankuan's sect is going to war with the Tao court because of Yuan Luo. The information is very reliable." Yuan Luo and Zhao Rushan had a long-standing feud from their early years. Both were once the first geniuses of their respective sects and now held great power, which gave them even more confidence. Conflicts arose with each encounter. "What's it to you?" Guan said casually. In fact, he had already foreseen the final outcome of this conflict. Before Yuan Luo's birth, Emperor Tianhong would kill Zhao Rushan, causing the decline of the Tao court until it disappeared from history. Now that Yuan Luo replaced Emperor Tianhong, a war between Qiankuan's sect and the Tao court was inevitable. Not just Qiankuan's sect, the 100 sects in the human world would also besiege the Tao court, aiming to overturn the world order of the past million years. Many other sects' great cultivators had already secretly colluded with Yuan Luo. The 20 geniuses from the undefeated Emperor clan had also risen. They came from the Emperor clan, inherently belligerent, and had long wished to overthrow the Tao court. Now they were on good terms with Yuan Luo, serving as his support. Even without these 20 geniuses, the Tao court would ultimately fall. It was a destined fate, as no power could remain prosperous forever in the human world. So Guan didn't stop the geniuses from the undefeated Emperor clan. Not only had he introduced variables to the human world, but over these 500,000 years, there were also more than 1,000 beings with great divine skills from other great thousand worlds. The celestial spirit god did not intervene, for the celestial spirit great world also had many who ventured through the world gate. The variables increased, and the profound Yuan free immortals and Taoist Zongzizai immortals of the human world could no longer foresee the future, causing unrest within the Tao court. Yet the fate of the celestial spirit great world remained visible to Guan whenever changes occurred. New destinies appeared in his vision. If he focused, he could even see the destiny branches created by these variables in advance. That's the Tao court, the strongest sect under the heavens. No, it's the strongest even beyond the heavens. Once Qiankuan's sect goes to war with them, could it affect our Taoist field of the beginningless? Shangguan Xiener's voice was filled with excitement and anticipation as she spoke. Among the third-generation disciples, aside from Zizai, the others only knew Guan was strong, but how strong exactly, they were unsure. Moreover, The second-generation disciples intentionally didn't reveal that Guan was invincible to prevent them from becoming too arrogant. Guan stood up listlessly saying, "Maybe. You better seize the time to cultivate. With your cultivation, you're merely cannon fodder against the Dao court." He touched his chest, curious about the book Shangguan Xianer had written. Deliberately, he didn't simulate it beforehand, letting this book remain a mystery. Objectively speaking, Shangguan Xianer's characterization of people and depiction of environments was indeed top-notch, though she lacked the creativity of Shenzhen. Shangguan Xianer huffed, "I've already preliminarily mastered the 3,000 slaying Dao swords. I may not lack the strength to fight." "Oh please, with your swordsmanship, you call that the 3,000 slaying Dao swords? Ancestor, you're going too far. Not just your 3,000 slaying Dao swords, even your master's doesn't qualify. Your comprehension in sword Dao is too poor." Guan deliberately teased Shangguan Xianer, inciting her face to redden with anger. Unlike how he encouraged the second-generation disciples, Guan relished discouraging the third-generation ones. He just liked seeing his disciple grandkids getting rattled. He knew he was quite vile for doing so, but seeing his grand-disciples, he just couldn't help but crack jokes. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 694. After a heated exchange with Guan, Shangguan Xianer left with a frustrated heart. "Master, is there divine scheming behind the conflict between the Dao court and the 100 sects of the human world?" And Xin's voice came through, as she opened her eyes, gazing at Guan from afar. Guan turned his head to look at her and asked with a smile, "What is it? Are you worried about the Qingquan sect?" An Xian shook her head and replied, "It doesn't matter who wins or loses. It's natural selection, destined by fate. I'm just worried that there's some interference from outer heaven. If that's the case, wouldn't it be a great pity for the sects of the human world? No matter who wins or loses, the internal strife in the celestial spirit great world can't affect much, as a new order will always arise. But the variables brought by the immortal gods are different, potentially overwhelming the entire celestial spirit great world. Such events have occurred before. Then you don't need to worry. The current disputes are also an evolution of the human world's progress." Facing an Xian, Guan was willing to reveal some heavenly secrets. The scheming of the immortal gods has always existed, but it's not the current conflict. An Xian nodded slightly, then came to Guan's side, beginning to inquire about difficulties in cultivation. She too had stepped onto the primordial emperor road, though her daily cultivation still primarily focused on the immortal emperor's eye. The master and disciple chatted for a while before Guan finally departed. He walked through the woods, his gaze fixed on the path of the great Dao. Someone was about to achieve the position of primordial Dao emperor. This will be the first primordial Dao emperor. And that person is Feng Xian. On the current path of the great Dao, over 3,000 beings have stepped onto the primordial emperor road. Once the first primordial Dao emperor is born, the fortune of the primordial Dao emperor will rise significantly, extending to the 3,000 great worlds. At that time, the primordial crystal will also be distributed across all heavens and myriad realms. The fortune of the primordial Dao emperor is still in a growing state. If someone were to kill Guan, this fortune would dissipate into thin air. Once a primordial Dao emperor is born, then, even if Guan were to fall, the fortune of the primordial Dao emperor would remain, just like the great Dao, eternal and unchanging. Because of this, Guan also eagerly anticipated Feng Xian's success. At this moment, Feng Xian was meditating in an independent void, where only he and the blood prison great saint existed. The blood prison great saint was far away, not daring to disturb him. Once this cycle of reincarnation reflection concludes, integrating all reincarnation insights, Feng Xian will truly become the primordial Dao emperor. As Guan's gaze fell upon Feng Xian opened his eyes in response, his eyes bursting forth with a frightening brilliance, as if illuminating the entire void. Seeing this, Guan's lips curled up, and he withdrew his gaze. He knew Feng Xian had succeeded. and no one would come to stop him. As the sun set in the west, on the grass by the big river, a man in black with a straw hat was advancing. He carried a broadsword on his back, 3 treasure swords at his waist, and a wine gourd in his hand, drinking as he moved. Behind the man in black was a young boy in commoner clothes, with 2 ropes thicker than his arms tied around him, connected to a broken log with a diameter of over a foot. This scene was quite spectacular because the disparity between the young boy's physique and the log was immense, making one marvel at the powerful strength contained within his small frame. Search the novel Fire. Net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. The young boy was already drenched in sweat and panting heavily. He looked up at the man in black ahead and gritted his teeth, saying, "Master, I've been carrying this burden for 100 miles. Are we not stopping yet?" "This is just the beginning," Leah replied casually, tipping over the wine gourd in his hand and shaking it downwards, catching a single drop that fell before tossing it into his mouth. His action seemed quite carefree, making it hard to believe he was a free immortal. The tides of the human world rose and fell, with exceptional talents always taking turns to shine. Li Ya's renown wasn't particularly illustrious, but his growth rate had always been among the top in the world, with continuous opportunities. He, too, was now on the primordial emperor road. Hearing his master's words, the young boy couldn't help but ask, "Continuously refining my physique, is it really useful? When will you teach me the method of cultivating immortality?" "Master, I really want revenge. You can't just mess with me like this." Leah did not turn back, snorted, "You brat, I'm not some idle person who has the time to mess with you. Your physique is extraordinary, it needs to be awakened. I'm doing this for your own good." Hearing this, the young boy could only suppress his frustrated feelings. After a while, he couldn't help but ask again, "Master, where are we going?" "To the sword sect, to see how my junior brother's disciple is doing in their Tao practice." "The sword sect? Is Master Uncle also in the sword sect?" During the years following Li Ya, the young boy had heard of the sword sect's name, a supreme sect rumored to house immortals. Just the thought of possibly having his master come from the sword sect made him excited. Having lived together for many years, he only knew his master's name was Li Ya, but not his background, which he was always curious about. Unfortunately, Li Ya wouldn't divulge any details. "Your master uncle isn't there because the founding ancestor of the sword sect is your master uncle's disciple." Li Ya's response made the young boy's eyes widen, his face full of disbelief. He was truly shocked. The sword sect was founded countless years ago, and in the legends of the immortal cultivation realm had heard, only the Tao court was older than the sword sect. If Li Ya wasn't exaggerating, then how many years had Li Ya lived? "Your master uncle has many disciples. Of course, I also have many, but unfortunately, my disciples don't compare to his." Li Ya hummed softly, intentionally provoking the young boy. As expected, upon hearing this, the young boy quickly said, "Master, don't worry, I will surely not disappoint you. I will cultivate to surpass the sword sect's founder. All you do is brag." Li Ya said this, but couldn't help the upward curve of his lips. He truly saw endless hope in the young boy, recalling the past and how, at his current realm, to advance his cultivation level required accumulating long centuries, so he also wanted to take disciples to pass the time. He's had more than 10 disciples, but felt none could compare to Gu An's disciples. He liked to compare his disciples with An Hao and Yang Jian. The young boy, to divert his focus, began to inquire about the name and whereabouts of that master uncle. Unfortunately, no matter how he asked, Li Ya gave ambiguous answers, leading to some bad guesses. Could it be that master and master uncle were not on good terms? Just then, the young boy noticed an old man fishing by the river ahead, which confused him. There was no town within 1,000 miles. Why would someone fish here? Could it be a sage in seclusion? He had heard many legends. Great fortune seekers often encountered reclusive sages, thereby gaining inheritances and opportunities. Li Ya also noticed the old man, appearing indifferent but was actually alert inside. Because he couldn't discern the other's cultivation level, he proceeded without a change in pace. As he walked past the old man's back, the old man spoke, "Li Ya, from the Taitsong dynasty, son of the son of heaven of Taitsong, sent to the supreme sect for cultivation in his youth. Liya stopped immediately upon hearing this. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 695. Heavenly Ascension Stairs. Liya looked at the old man by the river and squinted, asking, "Who are you, sir, and how do you know me?" The boy in coarse clothing followed and stopped, looking at them nervously. This old man had an unfathomable aura, and immediately revealed his master's origins. Clearly he wasn't simple. The old man slowly stood up, turned to Liya, revealing a face full of wrinkles. His eyes were so hollow that it sent chills down one's spine. "If I said I am an immortal god, would you believe me?" The old man stared at Liya, speaking in an indifferent tone. Liya raised an eyebrow and said, "Anyone who reaches nirvana can call themselves an immortal. There are plenty of immortals in this world. Why wouldn't I believe it?" Immortal gods. The boy in coarse clothing was stunned, quickly removing the rope from his body and watching the old man warily. He had experienced family destruction, so his vigilance was extremely high. "I am the Huangfeng immortal monarch of the celestial court, ruling over the 3,000 great worlds. Everything in your eyes is not even as large as my palm to me." As the old man spoke, he raised his right hand, his gaze falling on his palm. Such arrogant words made Liya frown. He also grew cautious, ready to fight at any time. "Throughout hundreds of thousands of years, I've sent people to help you numerous times, teaching you Taoist techniques. Of course, your accomplishments today are also due to your own strong fuyuan and the help of other benefactors. But the immortal gods have always been watching you." Huangfeng immortal monarch raised his eyes to Liya, their eyes meeting. Liya inexplicably believed him. Liya asked, "So? What do you want? Do you need me to repay you?" Huangfeng immortal monarch asked, "If I offer you the opportunity to become an immortal class, would you take it?" "What are the conditions?" "After joining the immortal class, Sangtian will only grant you duties and divine power. I don't need you to do anything for me." The words of Huangfeng immortal monarch made Liya frown even more. Liya stared intently at Huangfeng immortal monarch, as if trying to see through him. Huangfeng immortal monarch continued, "To be honest, choosing you wasn't because of your own opportunity, but because of the supporting Tao Sword Venerable. I think the supporting Tao Sword Venerable has a misunderstanding about the celestial court and the immortal gods. If there's no substantive conflict, I see no need to be enemies. If you become an immortal god and understand the celestial court, you would build a bridge between the celestial court and the supporting Tao Sword Venerable. In the future, a terrifying cataclysm will descend, sweeping across the 3,000 great worlds. We can face it together." Upon hearing him mention Guan, Liya's frown instead eased. Saying it like this, it seems true. Although he thinks highly of himself, he wouldn't truly think he could attract the attention of the immortal gods. Even though he doesn't know where the celestial court is, just hearing about it, he imagines it as an unimaginably powerful force. Liya asked, "If that's the case, why don't you just approach him directly? Can't you find him?" Huangfeng immortal monarch turned his head towards the horizon, speaking leisurely. "There is already an immortal god by his side, and sooner or later he will be told. As for finding you, it's just to deepen my sincerity." Liya thought for a moment and said, "Then can I talk to him first before coming to you?" Huangfeng immortal monarch looked at him, smiled and softly said, "Of course, that's not a problem. Let me first take you to see the celestial court." As he finished speaking, he suddenly swung his sleeve, sweeping away Liya and the boy in coarse clothing, the three disappearing together from the grass. Far away on the Taitsong continent, Guan did not stop what he was doing, continuing to pick medicinal herbs. Profound mysterious Shinran followed beside him. After 500,000 years, he had completely mastered the demon god body, his cultivation reaching the Zizai immortal realm, with an even more terrifying physical strength. Guan believed that even Taoist Zhang Zizai immortal was no match for him. Such progress is not exaggerated. After all, The demon god body is a great opportunity from the celestial court. Now when facing him, Guan no longer hides behind a tiny masked figure, but confronts with his true form. Profound mysterious Shenren followed beside Guan, like a Taoist child, inquiring about his cultivation doubts. Guan listened patiently, answering every question. After Guan finished picking the ripe medicinal herbs, profound mysterious Shenren began sowing seeds. Guan did not leave immediately but waited in the courtyard, his gaze on the row of stone statues in front of the courtyard wall, all of which were sword venerate divine statues crafted by profound mysterious Shenren. When profound mysterious Shenren returned to the courtyard, Guan spoke. Why make these stone statues? I don't need faith, nor do I need people to always remember me. This was the truth. His cultivation to date was not reliant on the faith of the masses or worldly merits. They should remember. You don't need faith, but the world must not forget you. This is my selfish thought because I know this world isn't so important to you. If no one remembers you, there's no need for you to remain here. Profound mysterious Shenren spoke earnestly. The higher his cultivation level, the more he admired Guan. Even with a Tao heart like his, he would yearn for the universe beyond, for other great thousand worlds, but Guan could remain reclusive here and save the world multiple times. After hearing this, Guan did not respond directly but smiled. Your kin is about to ascend to immortality. Kin? Do you mean Liya? Profound mysterious Shenren asked with a frown. He already knew the relationship between Guan and Liya. Back then, he marveled at Liya's luck. Although they share the surname Li, he and Liya were like strangers. In his view, without Guan's help, neither he nor Liya could become immortals. There are immortal gods wooing him, trying to persuade him to become an immortal, supposedly to draw me in. Guan spoke with a smile, lifting his eyes to the celestial vault, his gaze seemingly already locking onto Liya. Profound mysterious Shenren heard the implication in Guan's words and asked, Since it's a scheme, will you intervene? Guan calmly replied, Let Liya see the celestial court first. He needs to make his own choice. Even if the other party's target is me for him, it's a great opportunity rarely encountered in life. These words made profound mysterious Shenren deeply respectful. Compared to Guan's broad-mindedness, the schemes of the heavenly court immortals were insignificant. The lord of the celestial court is lacking. It would be better to let the senior take charge. Profound mysterious Shenren looked at Guan, thinking to himself. Above the sea of clouds, Huangfeng immortal monarch, Liya, and the boy in coarse clothing appeared out of thin air. The boy in coarse clothing collapsed directly onto the clouds. He was about to speak, but was captivated by the sight above. Following his gaze, the celestial vault was azure, and at the top of the celestial vault, one could see the cosmic starry sky, vast and boundless, giving a fantastical sense of being in a dream. Sir the Nelfire. NT website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. The celestial vault merged seamlessly with the universe. Liya was also drawn by the magnificent scene above, feeling that the concentration of spiritual energy here far surpassed that of the celestial spirit great world. Cultivating here for a day might equal several months in the celestial spirit great world. Is this the celestial court? Huangfeng immortal monarch spoke. This is not the celestial court, but it leads to the celestial court. The celestial court is above all realms, and cannot be reached merely by traversing the universe. One must ascend the heavenly ascension stairs. In the celestial court, not all immortal gods can ascend the heavenly ascension stairs. The celestial spirit god who guards the celestial spirit great world has never stepped on the heavenly ascension stairs in his life. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 696. Heavenly Might. Heavenly Ascension Stairs. Liya looked up, searching for the heavenly ascension stairs that Huangfeng immortal monarch mentioned, but no matter which direction he looked, he couldn't find them. The cloth-clad youth was also searching for the heavenly ascension stairs. The celestial vault was boundless, the universe magnificent, its end unseen, and the sea of clouds beneath their feet equally vast, making them feel as insignificant as dust. After looking around, Leah couldn't help but ask, "Where are the heavenly ascension stairs? You can't have brought me here just to look at the sky, right?" Huang Feng, immortal monarch, smiled and said, "Usually you can't glimpse the immortal signs of the celestial court, but today I will make an exception. You are about to witness something even a celestial god cannot comprehend." These words made Leah and the cloth-clad youth even more expectant. Huang Feng, immortal monarch, stepped forward, then lifted his robe, kneeling with one knee and raised both arms, chanting magic spells that Leah and his apprentice could not understand. Leah and the cloth-clad youth became even more anxious, looking up at the celestial vault, waiting for the heavenly ascension stairs to appear. CTH Nelfer. Net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. The sea of clouds ceased its surging, the celestial vault and the starry cosmos remained silent yet oppressive. As time passed, Leah and the cloth-clad youth gradually felt an overwhelming pressure, reminiscent of the celestial tribulation experienced during crossing the tribulation. Leah felt it most acutely, as none of the pressures he had faced during any celestial tribulation ever compared to the current heavenly pressure. Suddenly, a burst of golden light descended, illuminating Leah and the others. Eyes wide open, mouth slightly agape. A streak of golden light quickly descended from the depths of the universe, rapidly enlarging, seemingly set to occupy the entire cosmos. Before Leah and the youth could ponder further, the golden light had already descended, turning into an incomparably majestic golden mountain, stretching countless miles long, its height unfathomable. The cloth-clad youth gazed upwards, pupils full of golden light. Even Leah was shocked, looking up in awe and spontaneously guessing how high this golden mountain might be. It seemed 1,000,000 zhang high. Placed in the celestial spirit great world, it would probably be visible even from outer heaven. Yet he had never seen such an enormous mountain, making him forget his worries for a moment, staring blankly at the golden mountain ahead. The golden mountain shone brightly, devoid of any vegetation, appearing like a heavenly wall across their path. And once it fell, its imposing aura grew, showing no end in sight on either side. Huang Feng, immortal monarch, slowly stood up, looking at the 1,000,000 zhang high golden mountain before him, eyes full of reverence. How could the heavenly ascension stairs? Leah took a deep breath, looked towards Huang Feng, immortal monarch, opening his mouth to ask. Yet before he could finish, another vast heavenly pressure descended, startling him to look up again. What he saw next was a scene he would never forget. One after another, golden mountains 1,000,000 zhang high fell from the top of the universe, stacking upon each other, shaking the heavens. Boom, boom, boom. The entire world seemed to tremor, the sea of clouds roiling like molten waves. The cloth-clad youth gazed in shock at the celestial vault, body trembling incessantly, and Leah, though slightly better, was not much different. Golden mountains layered upon one another, rising continuously, forming a golden celestial staircase leading into the depths of the universe. Each step 1,000,000 zhang high, exuding an insurmountable oppression, sacred and solemn. After a while, the disturbances in this world finally subsided. Huang Feng, immortal monarch, waved his sleeves, taking Leah and the cloth-clad youth to the distance, looking at the heavenly ascension stairs from millions of miles away. Even from such a distance, the heavenly ascension stairs still overwhelmed the eyes of Leah and his apprentice. From this vantage point, the heavenly ascension stairs seemed to have already broken out of the boundaries of this world, leading deep into the universe, unseen at the end. And Leah and the youth felt that just walking along these stairs would take them to the peak of the great Tao. The feeling was wondrous, yet the two inexplicably nurtured such a thought. The heavenly ascension stairs are not just tall. Each step harbors immense heavenly pressure. To set foot on the first step, one must first reach the golden immortal Tao fruit realm, a realm far beyond your current reach. Only those in the immortal class have the opportunity to attain it. Huang Feng, immortal monarch, remarked with a tone of reflection. Although this was not his first sight of the heavenly ascension stairs, he could not help but marvel every time he saw them. The existence of the heavenly ascension stairs symbolized the insurmountable gap between the mortal and the immortal. Even someone like Huang Feng, immortal monarch, felt a sense of awe toward the heavenly Tao. Liya did not respond, still caught in the throes of shock. He could feel that every step of the heavenly ascension stairs encompassed the strongest true meaning of the great Tao. So much so that he felt an impulse to kneel and worship. The trembling cloth-clad youth couldn't withstand the heavenly pressure, and knelt in the sea of clouds, eyes vacant. Huang Feng, immortal monarch, turned, looking at Liya, and with a smile asked, "Now how will you choose? Will you still seek him out? Even if I can't form a friendship between you and him, becoming an immortal god is your greatest opportunity. Only by becoming an immortal god can you truly achieve immortality. I cannot harm you, for the celestial rules exist." Upon hearing this, Liya instinctively wanted to agree, yet as he spoke he forcibly suppressed the urge within. After seeing the heavenly ascension stairs, he believed in the existence of the celestial court, influenced by the heavenly Tao on his soul, making him unable to doubt it. Yet when it came to Guan, he had to tread carefully. Huang Feng, immortal monarch's words only made him feel that the immortal monarch was fearful of his contact with Guan. Was it truly to form an alliance through him? Liya took a deep breath and said, "I still wish to find him first. I will strive to convey your sincerity." He feared that Huang Feng, immortal monarch, would turn hostile, so he left room in his words. Huang Feng, immortal monarch, heard this, still maintaining a smile. Yet his smile grew more and more eerie. Liya realized something was amiss, immediately grabbing the cloth-clad youth, distancing them from Huang Feng, immortal monarch. The next second, Liya's expression changed drastically, discovering his mana had solidified, looking at Huang Feng, immortal monarch, in terror. The cloth-clad youth also awoke from his shock, glancing at Huang Feng, immortal monarch, frightened by the monarch's sinister smile. Huang Feng, immortal monarch, stared intently at Liya, sighing, "Mortal, I have treated you with such sincerity, yet why do you still mistrust me?" Though fear gripped Liya's heart, his words remained unyielding. He directly questioned, "What do you intend to do with Guan? If you are truly an immortal god, why resort to such tricks?" Huang Feng, immortal monarch, laughed coldly. "I did not deceive you. I do wish to win him over, to make him an immortal god. But if he refuses, then the celestial court can only eliminate him. No one can refuse the celestial court's invitation. If you do not understand, you must understand today." Boom. His aura erupted suddenly, his clothes burnt away by flames, flesh as if turning to ashes and scattering. His form heightened, quickly revealing his true form. Golden red light ribbons surrounded him, his appearance still aged, yet more solemn than before, two divine beast phantoms rising behind his head, intertwining. The yellow robe fluttered, celestial aura exuded. The revealed form of Huang Feng, immortal monarch, emanated an unparalleled aura of dominance. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 697. Facing the true form of Huang Feng, immortal monarch, Liya and the young man in simple clothes felt immense pressure, especially the young man, who felt like he might explode and die at any moment. The oppressive aura around them squeezed his body, causing his chi blood to become chaotic. Liya was terrified. He could feel Huang Feng, immortal monarch's killing intent. If he refused again, Huang Feng, immortal monarch, would definitely kill him. Moreover, he would have no power to resist. At this moment, memories of the past unexpectedly surfaced in Liya's mind. Those were memories of the profound valley, when he, Guan, and Meng Lang followed senior brother Zhang Chuanqiu to sow seeds. Back then, Meng Lang liked to order Guan around, while he always watched from the side. These memories had long become blurry, but for some reason, they became clear once again at this moment. Sar the Novel Fire. NT website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Huang Feng, immortal monarch, quietly watched him, waiting for his decision. The grand and boundless heavenly ascension stairs still stood behind Huang Feng, immortal monarch. Like the end of the world, an insurmountable chasm. The young man in simple clothes couldn't turn his head to look at his master, but he could feel his master's agony. The immortal god spoke eloquently, but with such aggression, It was obviously not with good intentions. However, if he died here, he would miss his chance for revenge. The young man's heart was filled with fear and unease. Liya remained silent for a long while. Only when Huang Feng, Immortal Monarch, shifted his gaze to the young man did he finally speak. I refuse to comply with you, even if you kill my disciple. Doing this will only make me angrier. If I survive, I will regard you as my greatest enemy, and even with the Celestial Court's protection, I will use all means and all my strength to take revenge on you. Until death. His tone wasn't fierce, even sounded strained, but his gaze was icy cold. Huang Feng, Immortal Monarch's brow slightly furrowed, and the killing intent in his eyes grew stronger. A mere mortal dared to threaten him like this. Boom. The young man in simple clothes suddenly exploded, flesh and blood flying everywhere, splattering onto Liya, covering half of his body with a bloody hue. His face was still marked with the remnants of the flesh and blood. Yet his expression did not change. He continued to stare tightly at Huang Feng, Immortal Monarch, as if his disciple's death didn't affect him. Huang Feng, Immortal Monarch, sneered with disdain, saying, "Do you think you still have a chance? Refuse me, and not only will you die, but everyone related to you will also suffer misfortune, living a life worse than death in the human purgatory, until death." He raised his right hand, reaching towards Liya. Liya's face remained stoic, only the chill in his eyes intensified. Snap. A hand suddenly rested on Huang Feng, Immortal Monarch's left shoulder, directly facing him. Liya's expression finally changed, and the corners of his mouth slightly lifted. Huang Feng, Immortal Monarch's face slightly altered. He turned his head slightly, using the corner of his eye to glance at the person behind him. Standing behind him was none other than Guan. Even though they were close, he couldn't see Gu An's true face. Supporting Dao Sword Venerable, you finally decided to show yourself. Huang Feng, Immortal Monarch, spoke, his tone tinged with mockery. Your entry into the celestial spirit great world must have been an accident. If you truly wished to support that son of heaven, you wouldn't have sent him out. Join the celestial court. I will personally petition Sangtian. You have no room for refusal. Having captured Tai, Immortal Monarch, and the 72 immortals of Jindong, you've already committed a heavenly crime. If you do not ascend to immortal god status before Sangtian becomes aware, you will face the wrath of the celestial court. By then, you will be facing an existence far more terrifying than I. Liya fixed his gaze on Huang Feng, Immortal Monarch, waiting now for Gu An's choice. Can you really represent the celestial court? Gu An's voice rang out, and Huang Feng, Immortal Monarch's body froze. Just as he was about to respond, a terrifying force suddenly obliterated his body, causing him to follow the same fate as the young man in simple clothes, except he did not explode into a blood flower, but instead turned into flying ash and dispersed. Seeing Huang Feng, Immortal Monarch, unable to resist in Gu An's hands, Liya was not surprised, but only his gaze turned complex. Junior brother Gu. Why couldn't you appear sooner? Liya thought bitterly. He felt he had no right to blame Guan because the young man's death was his responsibility. Even having lived for hundreds of thousands of years, and after having experienced the tragic death of disciples, his heart still felt filled with guilt and unwillingness. Just then, he noticed a change in Gu An's eyes, a dark red cold light flickering, rendering him momentarily dazed. Master! A familiar voice reached Liya's ears, as if it came from a great distance, gradually growing louder. He suddenly opened his eyes wide, awakening like from a dream. Turning his head to see his disciple, the young man in simple clothes, standing right beside him. Xianyu Yu, Liya looked at the young man, speaking in shock. He was utterly bewildered, unable to comprehend the situation. The young man named Li Xianyu stood before Liya, excitedly saying, Master, I'm not dead. I am alive. I thought I was going to die just now. Was I caught in an illusion technique? Upon hearing this, Liya looked down at his robe, noticing that the bloodstains were rapidly disappearing. The previous scene was definitely not an illusion technique. Guan did not fear too much, nor was he afraid of offending the celestial court because of this. Huang Feng, immortal monarch, acted too cautiously, clearly fearing that the matter would be exposed. The celestial court was so powerful that if Guan had really offended them, they could easily suppress him instead of constantly probing him. Guan surmised it had to do with Tian Hao. Tian Hao was the son of heaven reincarnated. Huang Feng, immortal monarch, Tai, immortal monarch, and others had come for him. From their perspective, Guan might be the protector of the Son of Heaven, possibly with other powerful immortal gods backing him. It was precisely because of this that Huang Feng, immortal monarch, continually asked if Guan wanted to join the celestial court. If he truly wanted to recruit Guan, why would he seek out Li Ya? So far, Huang Feng, immortal monarch, had not revealed how to make Guan and Li Ya become immortal gods, only constantly demonstrating the power of the celestial court. The Golden Crow divine sovereign did not stop walking, but as his distance to the sea of clouds shortened, his form became clearer. He seemed to be clad in thick divine armor, with a divine bird perched on his shoulder. Golden Crow. This Golden Crow was also enveloped in the strong light of the heavenly Tao, without revealing its true form. Sir the Oval Fire. Et website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Do you also dare to represent heaven's will? Gu An's voice rang out, breaking the oppressive aura of the Golden Crow divine sovereign and Huang Feng, immortal monarch, allowing Li Ya and his student to breathe a sigh of relief and cease their nervous tension throughout their bodies. Huang Feng, immortal monarch, squinted, his eyes bursting with coldness. He stopped speaking, waiting for the Golden Crow divine sovereign to make a move. What is your relationship with the eternal life, venerable? Do you know what consequences your actions will bring? An authoritative voice echoed, devoid of any emotion. Eternal life, venerable? Could it be the existence backing Tian Hao? Guan spoke. The person you are looking for is no longer in the celestial spirit great world. You have been bothering me incessantly, and it really troubles me. Humph, by aiding him, you become our enemy. Since you refuse to speak, then prepare to die and feel the true wrath of heaven. The voice of the Golden Crow divine sovereign resumed, domineering and starkly contrasting Huang Feng, immortal monarch's demeanor. He stopped his steps, stood on the heavenly ascension stairs, and looked down at Guan, raising his right arm. The Golden Crow on his shoulder fiercely flapped its wings, diving downward. The wind stirred Gu An's black Tao robe. He stood holding his sword with one hand, facing the wind, his silhouette imparting an indelible impact on Li Ya and Li Xuanyu. Before Guan, in the air, a huge sword shadow of silvery light appeared, larger than any single step of the heavenly ascension stairs, its tip pointing towards the Golden Crow divine sovereign and the countless fire dragons. A sword intent capable of shaking the clouds and disturbing the great Tao locked onto the Golden Crow divine sovereign. Standing on the heavenly ascension stairs, Huang Feng, immortal monarch, widened his eyes and exclaimed, "Such sword intent, how is it possible? What is your relationship with the one from the river of Sword Tao? If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible." They felt as though they had fallen into an abyss, the endless darkness assaulting their sight, causing their hearts to feel intense dread. This was an instinctive emotion. Even though they had the protection of Gu An's Tao intent, the impact on their vision still affected their minds. Fortunately, this fear was short-lived. When they regained their senses and looked closely, they could no longer see the figures of the Golden Crow divine sovereign and Huang Feng, immortal monarch. They were in the dark universe, void and desolate, with only the three of them remaining along with the heavenly ascension stairs. The heavenly ascension stairs still stood, the dazzling golden light becoming the sole source of light in this universe. Guan looked at the heavenly ascension stairs, feeling in his heart that the creations of the heavenly Tao were truly extraordinary, unable to disperse even the heavenly ascension stairs. He turned to walk toward Li Ya and Li Xianyu, just as the master and disciple were about to speak, when suddenly their vision blurred. The next moment, Li Ya and Li Xianyu felt their feet touch the ground, instinctively opening their eyes to find themselves back by the riverside they had previously passed. Li Ya looked around, already unable to see the figure of Guan. Everything that had happened before felt like a dream. Li Xianyu also did not find the figure of Guan, standing there dazed, recalling everything that had happened before, his expression bewildered. For a long time, Li Ya took a deep breath, looked up to the horizon, and murmured to himself, Miaozhen Daoyuo immortal, is that your realm? Unheard of, and I wonder how many realms away it is from the profound Yuan free immortal. Knowing Guan's realm, Li Ya began to feel excited. At least he now had a target to pursue. Li Xianyu couldn't help but ask, Master, was that person earlier the uncle master you mentioned before? Yes, it was him. Li Ya's expression returned to calm, as enigmatic as ever. He's amazing. Is he the most powerful existence under the heavens? Not just under the heavens. If you look beyond heaven, you won't find many who are his match. So powerful. How can he be your junior brother? Could it be you're hiding your cultivation? Li Xianyu asked expectantly, his eyes shining brightly. Li Ya did not answer, merely gazing profoundly toward the horizon, stirring Li Xianyu's imagination, and making it difficult for his emotions to calm down for a long time. On the other side, Guan did not return to the Taoist field of the beginningless, but stood on the cliff of a high mountain. In front of him, a sea of clouds churned, with peaks emerging from the clouds in the distance. It was as if he stood above the Tsangtian, with beautiful scenery. He was reflecting on the previous great battle. This battle had caused anxiety to arise in his heart. The celestial court's destiny was truly unsolvable, allowing immortal gods to resurrect endlessly. He must devise a method to dissolve the celestial court's destiny. The celestial court's destiny was essentially the celestial Tao destiny, only transformed through some creation, making the celestial court's destiny more complex. If he possessed a method to dissolve the celestial court's destiny, he could kill immortal gods at will. He thought it might be possible to start from the path of cause and effect, and the path of chi fortune. Although he could not think of a solution for now, he could conduct lifespan projection and life evolution. He did not immediately set about doing this. Instead, he lifted his eyes to the celestial vault, his gaze hesitant. In the unseen, he sensed a sword intent calling to him from afar, that place being the river of Sword Tao. The sword intent used to slay the Golden Crow Divine Sovereign had alerted a powerful being hidden within the river of Sword Tao, who used sword intent to show goodwill and wished to meet him. Should he make a trip to the river of Sword Tao? Above the boundless sea of clouds, there was a massive vortex emitting golden light, resembling an entrance to an exotic world, magnificently vast. Beside the vortex, two figures appeared out of thin air above the clouds and mist, precisely the Golden Crow Divine Sovereign and the Huangfeng Immortal Monarch. At this moment, the form of the Golden Crow Divine Sovereign was no longer as huge as it had been before. Though still more stalwart than the Huangfeng Immortal Monarch, they now appeared roughly similar in size. The two immortal gods half kneeled on the mist, their backs rising and falling, gasping for breath. The Golden Crow Divine Sovereign, with his head lowered and eyes wide open, kept gasping, his eyes full of shock. Though he could revive, the sword intent earlier actually injured his Tao fruit, leaving him with lingering fear. Sir, the novel fire. Any *T website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Even he was like this, not to mention the Huangfeng Immortal Monarch. Huangfeng Immortal Monarch trembled all over, supporting himself on the ground with both hands. He felt Guan's killing intent still locked onto him. After a while, the Golden Crow Divine Sovereign stood up, turning his head to look at Huangfeng Immortal Monarch, who was still kneeling on the ground. He spoke. Never go to the celestial spirit great world again. He had already returned to his usual state, solemn and indifferent. The Huangfeng Immortal Monarch did not lift his head, asking through gritted teeth, "What about the Tai Immortal Monarch and the 72 Immortals of Jin Dong? What do you mean, what about them? Could it be you and the Tai Immortal Monarch have become close friends? The celestial court is in turmoil now. Supporting the Son of Heaven we have chosen is the top priority." The Son of Heaven protected by the supporting Tao sword venerable is too weak, unable to threaten the Son of Heaven we chose. Chapter 700. Infinite Void Sword Ancestor in the Dark Void. A river that emitted a silver-blue radiance stretched across the universe, twisting slightly, resembling an endlessly long silver dragon advancing slowly. This was the river of Sword Tao, formed by the Sword Tao nurtured by the heavens, on whose surface silver lines continuously emerged, symbolizing the birth of new Sword Tao. Guan appeared out of thin air on the river of Sword Tao. He had spied upon the river of Sword Tao many times, but this was his first time truly coming to it. As soon as he manifested, he stepped forward and walked toward the interior of the river of Sword Tao. The sword intent he displayed when confronting the Golden Crow Divine Sovereign and Huang Feng Immortal Monarch had disturbed the strongest presence within the river of Sword Tao. Guan sensed that the other party's cultivation level had reached the Tao Extreme Daoyuo Immortal Realm, although their minor realm was not as high as his. This time, Guan suppressed his cultivation level and came to meet this powerful presence with the Miaozhen Daoyuo Immortal Realm Perfection cultivation level. After entering the river of Sword Tao, Guan was surrounded by sword intent. As he glanced around, he could peer through the sword intent into different worlds, seeing the 3,000 great worlds, countless little worlds, and mysterious planes adrift within the great Tao. The bizarre and colorful scenes along the way could not tempt Guan to halt his steps. Flying within the river of Sword Tao, Guan felt as if he were traversing through time and space. After a while, his feet landed on the grass, which was part of a small island floating in the depths of the river of Sword Tao. On the island was a grove, and on the grassland outside the grove stood numerous steles engraved with the names of various Sword Tao, numbering over 100. After just sweeping a glance at them, Guan walked toward the grove. The grove was serene and not very large. He reached the garden inside the grove after less than 20 steps. In the garden grew many flowers and plants, and there was a small wooden building, not very exquisite, giving off an ancient feel. In front of the building was a stone table, at which sat an old man in a gray robe brewing tea. The fragrance of tea filled the air, and Guan could feel a certain sword intent within the tea aroma. "Please have a seat, fellow Taoist." The old man in a gray robe looked at Guan and spoke with a smile. Infinite Void Sword Ancestor. Tao Extreme Daoyuo Immortal Realm Early Stage 0/0/0. No lifespan? No wonder he could only stay in the river of Sword Tao. It seemed his physical body and divine soul had already merged with the river of Sword Tao, coexisting with it. Those grievances were not surprising. He had merely stepped up to save a group of cultivators being harmed by a demon, but it turned out that the demon was backed by a supreme immortal. Since then he had been beset by endless pursuits. As the two conversed, Guan began gathering information about the Celestial Court, and the Infinite Void Sword Ancestor did not hold back. The celestial positions in the Celestial Court, from low to high, are classified as Celestial God, Star Monarch, Main Deity, Immortal Monarch, Supreme Immortal, Celestial Tao Venerable, and the Supreme Celestial Emperor. The celestial positions in the Celestial Court are not entirely determined by cultivation level. With sufficient merit, one could also be promoted, though the gap between each celestial position wasn't excessively wide. Some Supreme Immortals are Miaozhen Daoyuo Immortals, while others have surpassed the Miaozhen Daoyuo Immortal Realm. Additionally, the duties for each celestial position vary, as do the celestial Tao destinies they receive. Some immortals exist for combat and are extraordinarily powerful, while others, who are less skilled in combat, hold high ranks but may have cultivation levels lower than their subordinates. Besides these celestial positions in the Celestial Court, there are also some formidable presences that only partake in destiny, not holding specific celestial offices, and would only appear when the Celestial Court was in turmoil. Through the Infinite Void Sword Ancestor, although Guan could not determine the exact realm of the immortals by their celestial positions, he could at least confirm one point. Within the Celestial Court, the most powerful was the Celestial Emperor. In Guan's previous life in Wuxia, there were also many legends, including a celestial court, But within that celestial court, the celestial emperor was not the strongest. This was indeed a difference. Yet they were both called celestial courts. Perhaps the mythology from Wuxia was related to the celestial court he was confronting. Could it be that the celestial emperor in myths was not the strongest, due to the internal struggles of the celestial court? Guan silently speculated. The infinite void sword ancestor continued. I observed that the one who first provoked you was an immortal monarch. Therefore, the golden crow divine sovereign should indeed be the end of this cause and effect. As it involves the Son of Heaven, they certainly dare not call upon Sangtian. Although you could stand against the golden crow divine sovereign, it is best for you to think of more strategies. If you do not reject the celestial court, joining it is actually a good plan. Or letting your disciple enter the celestial court to share the burden for you. Guan developed a favorable impression of the infinite void sword ancestor. His suggestion was also one Guan had considered. Despite having a vendetta with the celestial court, he was still being advised in this manner. The infinite void sword ancestor was indeed sincere with him. I will consider it, though I am quite curious about the fight for the Son of Heaven. Could you tell me about it, fellow Taoist? Guan agreed, and then inquired further. CTH Novelfire. Net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 701. Legend of the Celestial Court. The Great Tao was born from chaos. Since its birth, the cosmic planes have continuously multiplied and expanded. When the Celestial Court was born, no one knows. The Celestial Emperor is one of the oldest living beings. During his reign, the 3,000 great worlds have been destroyed and rebuilt. In other words, the existence of the 3,000 great worlds does not last as long as the Celestial Emperor's life. The infinite void sword ancestor looked at the teapot on the table, speaking with a leisurely tone, while Guan listened intently. Over the long years, the Celestial Emperor has had many children. The sons of heaven are innumerable. And perhaps there are more hidden among the human world. The talents of the sons of heaven are very high. As their cultivation level increases, their ambitions naturally grow. The struggle among the sons of heaven in the celestial court has become commonplace. I heard of such struggles even when I was in the immortal cave heaven. The top 10 sons of heaven have all grown up, even surpassing the celestial Tao Venerable. They have stayed in the position of son of heaven for too long, and their ambition has led them to covet the position of the celestial emperor. But as long as the celestial emperor remains, it is difficult for the celestial court to fall into chaos. The celestial emperor's favor towards a son of heaven influences the camp of the immortal gods. Some sons of heaven capture the celestial emperor's favor just by meeting him once, while others are cast into reincarnation for offending him, implicating the immortal gods who were close to them. Of course, there is another situation where after being abandoned by the celestial emperor, he still keeps them in mind. This happened a long time ago, so some immortal gods try to recruit those sons of heaven reincarnated in the human world to gain maximum benefits. The celestial emperor's heart is unfathomable by immortals or gods. The celestial emperor holds the greatest celestial power and can dismiss the destiny of immortal gods. He has even executed many sons of heaven. For ambitious immortal gods, the struggle in the celestial court is unpredictable in fortune and calamity. Your disciple probably once received the celestial emperor's favor, which is why some immortal gods tried to recruit, leading to dissatisfaction among other sons of heaven. The words of the infinite void sword ancestor left Guan deeply moved. The struggle between the celestial emperor and the sons of heaven was strikingly similar to the human world's royal family battles, only more cruel and complex. Some celestial gods, upon just being promoted to star monarch, are recruited and forced to take sides. Until their demise, they don't even realize they died due to the sons of heaven's struggle. Although the celestial court is the place of highest authority on the great Tao, how different are the immortal gods at the bottom of the celestial court from mortals? merely stronger, but their life and death are equally beyond their control. Since you are aware of the Sons of Heaven's struggle, whether you enter the celestial court personally in the future or let a disciple join, you can take precautions and not be so passive. The Infinite Void Sword Ancestor said this as he picked up the teapot on the table and began pouring tea for Guan. Guan noted that the small furnace on the table was burning with a special Taoist fire, no less potent than the flames of the Golden Crow Divine Sovereign. Thank you, fellow Taoist, for telling me so much. I wonder why you have called me here, and what I can do for you. Guan shifted his gaze to the Infinite Void Sword Ancestor and curiously inquired. The information the Infinite Void Sword Ancestor provided was very valuable to him. He didn't mind reciprocating within his abilities. Upon hearing this, the Infinite Void Sword Ancestor chuckled softly. I dwell in the river of Sword Tao, eternal and undying. The battles within the Great Tao are unrelated to me. What desires would I have? Existences like mine can be found within other rivers of the Great Tao too, so I am not lonely. After pouring tea for Guan, he poured a cup for himself. The aroma of the tea filled the air, with smoke like some spirit beast dancing over the cup. So fellow Taoist has no regrets concerning the immortal cave heaven? Guan inquired while raising the teacup and taking a gentle sip. This tea contained profound truths of the Sword Tao, aiding in cultivation. The Infinite Void Sword Ancestor laughed. Once within the Great Tao, naturally cutting off past karmic ties, I have no relation with the immortal cave heaven anymore. This time, I sought you merely to discuss the Sword Tao. I am very interested in the Sacred Heart Sword Tao. I have comprehended it before, yet it is continually strengthening, and I can never fully understand it. Would fellow Taoists be willing to discuss the Tao with me? Of course, though it cannot be for too long. Guan pretended to hesitate, not wanting to delay picking medicinal herbs. The Infinite Void Sword Ancestor laughed heartily and proceeded to drink tea and discuss the Tao with Guan. This discussion lasted a month. Guan seized an opportunity to interrupt, then took his leave, promising to return again in the future. Only then did the Infinite Void Sword Ancestor not feel regretful. Upon returning to the Celestial Spirit Great World, Guan first went to various areas of the Medicine Valley to pick medicinal herbs. Once all the mature medicinal herbs were harvested, he finally exhaled a sigh of relief. He suddenly felt as if he was being controlled by the medicinal herbs. Actually, picking for one less year wouldn't have harmed him, but the habit formed over many years left him unable to stop. Upon realizing this, Guan couldn't help but mock himself with a smile. Still not strong enough, he thought. When his strength reaches a level where he no longer cares about the income from 10 or 100 years of lifespan, his mentality should change. He returned to the Taoist field of the beginningless and began recalling his discussion of the Tao with the Infinite Void Sword Ancestor. The Sword Tao achievement of the Infinite Void Sword Ancestor was undoubtedly the strongest head ever encountered, and even a month of such discussion benefited him greatly. The turmoil in the human world continued to evolve. Even though his grand disciples frequently came to him to chat about these matters, he paid them no heed. His thoughts were concentrated on the celestial court. He had to think about how to place profound mysterious Shinran within the celestial court without being detected. At the same time, he also had to think about how to resolve the celestial court's destiny. In the blink of an eye, 100 years passed. Guan made no progress concerning destiny, hence he chose a minor approach, frequently performing lifespan phantoms. With each lifespan phantom, he left behind a legend in the 3,000 great worlds. Fortunately, the reincarnated lives concerned themselves solely with their own cultivation, leaving no ties or karma, so their legends had limited impact. After a consecutive 10 lifespan phantoms, Guan's understanding of the path of Qi fortune reached another level. But it still wasn't enough. He still had a long way to go to fully comprehend the celestial Tao destiny. In the depths of the universe, the world gate still stood. The celestial spirit god was meditating in front of the gate when he suddenly sensed something. Opening his eyes, he calculated with his fingers, his face changed dramatically, and he stood up abruptly. He took a few steps forward and knelt halfway down in front of the world gate. Soon, a strong light burst from within the gate, illuminating the dim void. stretching the shadow of the celestial spirit god long. A figure slowly emerged from the world gate. An old man in white robes holding a horsetail whisk, with crane-white hair and youthful complexion. His figure appeared slightly thin, and clouds rose beneath his feet. Behind him presented a sea of stars Dharma aspect, his eyes calm, seemingly containing two great worlds. The celestial spirit god kept his head low, not daring to look at the white-robed elder. At this moment, the celestial spirit god was filled with shock. He didn't recognize this white-robed elder, but the elder's celestial Tao destiny was the heaviest he had ever seen in his life. The elder's immortal position must be exceedingly high, beyond his imagination. Why would such a being personally come to the celestial spirit great world? Sarch * the Nelfire. Chapter 702. Heavenly Court's Heavenly Order. Rise, I have come this time for personal matters. The elder in white robes spoke, and these words made the celestial spirit god even more nervous, as coming for personal matters likely meant vendetta. Do you know the cause and effect of your son? The elder in white robes stopped in front of the celestial spirit god, and asked with an indifferent expression. The celestial spirit god raised his eyes to look at him, hesitated for a moment, and said, "Is he the reincarnation of the Son of Heaven?" Since the other party could ask this, it was certain they knew the situation. Hiding the facts he knew would only make things more troublesome. That's right, he is the Son of Heaven, Xianqing, and also my disciple. I entrusted Emperor Ziwei to cover up his cause and effect. To have kept it hidden for so long, I am quite satisfied. The response from the elder in white robes made the celestial spirit god sigh with relief. So he was Tianhao's former master. In that case, he shouldn't be an enemy. I am titled Eternal Life Venerable, and I wish to meet supporting Tao Sword Venerable. Go and summon him for me. I will wait for him at the world gate. With an indisputable tone, the elder in white robes spoke, and upon hearing the term venerable, the celestial spirit god's pupils suddenly contracted. Inside, he was in turmoil. He never expected such a legendary figure to come in person. He dared not refute and immediately rose to go find Guan. Eternal Life Venerable waved his sleeve, and the clouds around him dispersed, concealing his figure. 9 Spirit Continent, Qiankuan Sect. Guan and the celestial spirit god met in the city. The two walked on the street, strolling while discussing Eternal Life Venerable. A being in the celestial court entitled as Venerable is an ancient legend. Venerable is an existence above a mortal monarch. It's my first time seeing a Venerable. He came for Tianhao, claiming to see you. The celestial spirit god said with a tightly furrowed brow and a worried face. The arrival of Eternal Life Venerable to seek him was understandable, as after all, he had an inseparable cause with Tianhao. But why look for Guan? Tianhao had already left the celestial spirit great world. Yet Eternal Life Venerable still sought Guan. Could it be to eliminate Guan? The celestial spirit god had deep interactions with Guan. He knew that if Guan were eradicated, he too would find it hard to escape death. Immortal gods are indestructible, but that's outside the celestial court. Inside, high-ranked immortal gods must die if their celestial court destiny is removed. Guan's expression remained unchanged as he looked around. He wasn't in a hurry to meet Eternal Life Venerable. As soon as Eternal Life Venerable arrived, he had already sensed it. This person's cultivation level was in the early stages of the Tao Extreme Daoyuo Immortal Realm, far surpassing the Golden Crow Divine Sovereign. Both being supreme immortals, the Golden Crow Divine Sovereign was merely a Miaozhen Daoyuo Immortal, while Eternal Life Venerable reached the Tao Extreme Daoyuo Immortal Realm. No wonder he could be the master of the Son of Heaven. Guan wasn't afraid of the trouble because Eternal Life Venerable did not harbor hostility toward him, nor did he become his cause and effect nemesis. Ever since the life expectancy prediction upgraded, Guan would always receive hints of cause and effect hatred. Those destined to foster enmity with him numbered over 10 billion. This was still despite not venturing everywhere, making it hard to imagine how many enemies those cultivators, exploring the heavens, would encounter in a lifetime. Sarch * the Novel Fire. Net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. I'll go meet him later. It's rare for you to come by, so why not take a look at the new novelties in the Qianquan sect? Guan softly laughed after hearing the celestial spirit god's words. Seeing Guan so calm made the celestial spirit god reassured as well, admiring him secretly. Guan's composure was enough to make him pursue for a long time. Despite the admiration, he could never wholeheartedly immerse himself in amusement. It wasn't until dusk that Guan followed the celestial spirit god to the world gate. Night fell. Guan returned to the Taoist field of the beginningless. He entered his courtyard where only Shenzhen sat before the artifact refining cauldron. Seeing Guan return, Shenzhen turned her head, noticing the golden token in his hand, asked curiously, "What is that in your hand?" Guan walked over to his deck chair and sat down. Lying on it, he raised the golden token with his right hand, seemingly wanting to admire it under the moonlight. "This is the Heavenly Court's heavenly order. With this token one may be ranked in the immortal class," Guan replied. Eternal Life Venerable sought him out specifically to offer such an opportunity, which appeared as a repayment for caring for Tian Hao, but was very clear to him that Eternal Life Venerable wished to tie him completely to Tian Hao, becoming part of the same faction. This Heavenly Court's heavenly order could allow one to directly enter the Celestial Court without undergoing trials, starting at a rank higher than a Celestial God. The Celestial Spirit God was taken aback when he heard about the power of this order, nearly shattering his beliefs. Unable to part with Tian Hao, Guan naturally did not refuse this opportunity. He was now considering whom to give it to. Profound Mysterious Jinren did not count, as he needed to prepare for both possibilities, and not be led by Eternal Life Venerable. He decided to choose one disciple to ascend to immortality, based on who had the greatest desire. Rank in the immortal class. Shenzhen was taken aback, immediately stood up, squatted down beside Guan, and curiously examined the Heavenly Court's heavenly order. She inquired how the order came to be, and Guan did not hide it. Shenzhen had long known about the existence of the Celestial Court and Tian Hao's origins through Guan. But even so, she was still amazed when she heard about Guan's engagement with the immortal gods. Even always at Guan's side, she couldn't fully gauge how high Guan's level was. "Who do you think this order should be given to?" Guan asked nonchalantly. Shenzhen thought for a moment and said, "Do you remember your other disciple, Yang Jian? Yang Jian once wished to pursue An Hao. Now that An Hao has already reincarnated and is ascending to immortality, why not let Yang Jian ascend and continue to pursue An Hao? I always feel there's something hidden when you want a disciple in the dojo to ascend." Having been in the Taoist field of the beginningless for so many years, how could she not realize the dojo's uniqueness? Moreover, having delved into the path of cause and effect, she understood the fearsome nature of cause and effect, and thus did not wish for someone from the Taoist field of the beginningless to ascend to immortality. Guan glanced at Shenzhen. A smile touched his lips. "Guan, what is the Celestial Court really like? How many immortal gods are there, and where are they?" Shenzhen curiously asked. Guan narrated all the information he had learned, which left Shenzhen full of emotion. It seems even the so-called immortal gods cannot escape the strife of interests. But what heights would true transcendence reach? Shenzhen sincerely sighed, and Guan did not answer her. He was also pondering this very question. Is the Supreme Celestial Emperor transcendent? If transcendent, why is there a struggle for the position of Celestial Emperor? And the countless vast great Daos still exist in places where even the Celestial Tao destiny cannot cover, indicating that the Celestial Tao is not the mightiest. That night, Guan and Shenzhen admired the moon together, discussing their imaginations of transcendence. Until the next morning, Guan left the Taoist field of the beginningless with Shenzhen and an Xian. On the way, an Xian learned of Guan's intention for Yang Jian to ascend to immortality, and thus learned of the interaction between Guan and Eternal Life Venerable, which piqued her curiosity about An Hao's identity as the Son of Heaven. Yang Jian currently remained in the Taizong dynasty, but he was in long-term seclusion, away from the court. The Taizong dynasty's foremost great general was Long Tongue, whose presence allowed him to cultivate peacefully. Having reached the free immortal state, He was considering undergoing the reincarnation tribulation. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 703. It was early autumn, and in the Holy King Palace, Yang Jian sat in the courtyard, sipping tea and enjoying the scenery. He wore a loose embroidered robe, his expression gentle, making it hard to believe he was once the great general who helped establish the Taizong dynasty with great achievements. I didn't expect you to be so leisurely now. Do you no longer have higher pursuits in life? A female voice rang out in the garden, startling Yang Jian to turn his head, only to see an Xian entering through the garden's archway, followed by Shenzhen. And behind Shenzhen was someone else. When Yang Jian saw who that last person was, his expression changed drastically, and he immediately stood up and knelt on the ground. Disciple Yang Jian pays respects to master. Guan walked at the end, and upon hearing Yang Jian's words, he did not respond immediately, but instead glanced around the garden. This garden's structure and scenery were exactly the same as a garden in the Third Medicine Valley from years ago, showing Yang Jian's deep longing for the past. An Xian approached Yang Jian and said irritably, "You still remember you have a master? So many years have passed. Why haven't you come to see your master? Don't say you couldn't find him. If you had the heart, 1,000,000 years wouldn't be enough to find him?" Yang Jian looked up, helplessly said, "Although I have retired, I cannot leave the Taizong dynasty. The imperial dynasty has enemies all over the world. I truly feel powerless." An Xian snorted and said no more, moving to the side. Yang Jian watched as Guan approached, his face showing excitement. In the past 1,000,000 years he often imagined meeting Guan, but when the day finally came, his 1,000 words were stuck in his throat, unable to be expressed. "Stand up, let's sit and talk." Guan smiled, and his smile made Yang Jian feel relieved. Although they hadn't seen each other for many years, Guan had always been concerned about Yang Jian, never blaming him for not visiting. After all, the vastness of the world couldn't be ignored, and as long as Yang Jian held him in his heart, he was satisfied. After all, Yang Jian had grown up under his care, and was once his most beloved disciple. Times had changed, and Yang Jian was no longer his most powerful disciple, but Guan did not assess his disciples based solely on strength. He nurtured disciples out of interest, never relying on them. Yang Jian quickly got up, then invited Shenzhen to sit down as well. After the four sat down, Guan began asking about Yang Jian's experiences over the years, and Yang Jian spoke at length while Shenzhen and an Xian listened intently. After an hour, Guan then stated his purpose, discussing the pros and cons of becoming an immortal god, and even disclosed Enhao's background. Upon hearing that Enhao was the reincarnation of the celestial emperor's son, Yang Jian was shocked but found it reasonable. Even as the world was reshaped and the cultivation speed of human prodigies grew increasingly exaggerated, Enhao's impact on him was the greatest. Such a genius being the celestial emperor's son made sense. "I am willing." Facing Guan's gaze, Yang Jian agreed directly. Guan smiled. "No rush, you can think about it more. There will be no regrets later." Yang Jian said seriously, "Becoming an immortal god means losing freedom, but such an opportunity is something mortal spirits can never touch. How can I refuse my master's kindness? Moreover, as you said, it involves seeing your brother Enhao. I am willing to enter the celestial court on your behalf, aiding senior brother Enhao while also being your eyes within the celestial court." Having held power in the holy court and a high position in the Taizong dynasty, he understood what he needed to do after knowing the backstory of this cause and effect. Being his master's pawn, he had no worries and even looked forward to it. And he believed his master wouldn't let him down. After staying in the Taizong dynasty for so many years, he had grown tired of the struggles within the human dynasty. Participating in the Heavenly Sons contest in the celestial court thrilled him. Such feelings hadn't surfaced for a long time. Guan's lips turned upward. With Yang Jian's words, he naturally had no reason to refuse. He directly took out the Heavenly Court's heavenly order and placed it on the table. "When you're ready, Just infuse your divine sense into this token, and the heavenly Tao will summon you to the celestial court. The timing is up to you. With that, Guan stood up and turned to leave. An Xian and Shenzhen followed closely behind. SE of the novel_fire. @ website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Yang Jian immediately got up, bowed to Guan's departing figure, and respectfully sent him off. Guan, along with an Xian and Shenzhen, vanished into thin air within the garden, and only then did Yang Jian lay his eyes on the heavenly court's heavenly order. Elsewhere, Guan and his companions arrived on a street in the imperial city, planning to enjoy themselves for 2 days before returning. Guess how long it will take him to reach the celestial court? Shenzhen asked with a smile. An Xian was just about to speak when suddenly, a deafening roar sounded from afar. A majestic celestial might envelop the entire world, causing everyone on the street to turn their heads. From the east direction of the imperial city, a white pillar of light appeared, piercing through the skies spectacularly. Shenzhen was stunned. She sensed a tremendous celestial Tao destiny and immediately guessed it was Yang Jian. She didn't expect Yang Jian to act so swiftly. An Xian laughed. He's smart. The more he prepares, the more he hesitates. After all, he's not a lone wolf. Li Xuanmiao similarly had not undergone the reincarnation tribulation, as Guan was suppressing his cultivation level. The difficulty of challenges in the celestial Tao examination depended on the trialist's cultivation realm. Guan had previously simulated a lifespan to know the process of this examination. This celestial Tao examination was a chance for immortality Lu Xian had once stumbled upon, and had already been handed over to Guan. The celestial Tao immortal stone, containing opportunities for ascension, which Guan had understood from the eternal life venerable, was concealed in almost every great world. It represented the celestial court's mercy to all beings of the human world. Those with extraordinary talent could ascend by passing the celestial Tao examination within it, the immortal position determined by their own strength. The celestial Tao immortal stone could not capture fate. Even the eternal life venerable could not deduce its specific location. Whether or not one encounters it depends on fate. SE of the novel fire. Net * website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Of course, passing this examination is exceedingly hard. Lu Xian had already failed before. It is worth mentioning, if one passes the examination and then refuses to ascend, celestial punishment would ensue, as no one could refuse the celestial court. Truly? Li Xuanmiao asked in surprise, trusting in Guan's judgment because Guan was the most powerful being under heaven. No. Perhaps even beyond heaven, he was the strongest. Naturally, from now on, call me master. Guan's words brought delight to Li Xuanmiao, who promptly knelt down to take him as his master. Thereafter, Guan took out a small cauldron and said, "This is the mountain and river unparalleled cauldron, and is a Tao treasure of Wuxia. I have temporarily sealed Wuxi's destiny. Yet even so, it is still a formidable magical treasure. It will protect you when you are in mortal danger, just like every Wuxiji disciple has a Tao treasure." Yang Jian did not have one yet, but it was already prepared for when he returned from the celestial court to visit. Li Xuanmiao received the mountain and river unparalleled cauldron with joy. The more he looked at it, the more he loved it. After he played with it for a while, Guan began guiding him to refine the cauldron. "It's time for you to ascend to immortality," Guan thought to himself while looking at Li Xuanmiao. All of Li Xuanmiao's divine skills were personally imparted by him, leaving no shortcomings. Coupled with his demon god body, Guan was eager to see how Li Xuanmiao would perform once he became a god. Meanwhile, the path of the great Tao, the blood prison great saint sat cross-legged atop a mountain peak, surrounded by the aura of the great Tao, casting an oppressive atmosphere across this void. In the distance, on the barren land, Fang Xian stood shoulder to shoulder with 5 cultivators, gazing at him. "I wonder if the second brother will succeed?" "He surely will. His talent in the primordial Tao Emperor far surpasses ours. The second primordial Tao Emperor among us is about to be born. It's truly exciting. We must also strive. Once all 7 of us become primordial Tao Emperors, we can challenge the Taoist Emperor to vindicate the primordial Tao Emperor. Haha, in actuality, there's no need for us to act. Xuanji Emperor alone can vindicate. With his talent, he is bound to become a primordial Tao Emperor. Feng Xian did not engage in the conversation with the other 5. He looked at the blood prison great saint, his gaze steady, confident in the latter's success. Feng Xian had already attained the primordial Tao Emperor, fully aware of its power, and no longer deemed it necessary to compete with the Taoist Emperor. In his view, no great Tao destiny could compare to the primordial Tao Emperor. The Taoist Emperor relied on combat and deprivation, the celestial Tao destiny on faith, while the primordial Tao Emperor only required enlightenment. The 3,000 great Taoists never mentioned one Tao devouring another. Thus he felt the primordial Tao Emperor was the truly correct path. Nevertheless, he had no reason to dampen the enthusiasm of his sworn brothers. More than fretting over whether the blood prison great saint would succeed, he feared that success would lead to separation. Since the destruction of the battle court, Feng Xian drifted alone, with the blood prison great saint as his only confidant and support, and he did not wish for him to leave. However, if return was his chosen path, he would not obstruct it. At this moment, an overwhelming pressure descended, compelling Feng Xian and the 5 others to turn their heads, seeing a massive black hole appearing in the depths of the void, seemingly about to devour from the ends of the earth. From within the black hole, numerous dreadful auras emerged, clearly indicating an incoming force. Prepare for battle. There are always those seeking shortcuts. Feng Xian spoke emotionlessly. As the heaven-encompassing free immortal, bolstered by the primordial Tao Emperor, he would not fear anything short of a golden immortal. Upon hearing this, the other 5 each brought out their magical treasures, not surprised by the arrival of adversaries. This group had plagued them for tens of thousands of years, coveting Feng Xian's body as a primordial Tao Emperor to understand its mysteries. Feng Xian was the first to fly forth, his formidable aura erupting suddenly, matching the combined aura of the mysterious force within the black hole. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.